everybody. Welcome to the show. We are live. I am Seahawks Brendan Nelson, and I am joined, as I am every couple weeks on this channel, by the Hawks Nest. So, Brandon, thank you. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, brother. I'm stoked. Christmas is almost here. The presents are wrapped beneath the trees. The stockings are not yet filled, but they're going to be filled. I know they will be. So I'm happier than a pig in muck right now, as they say.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. We are in about 24 hours. We will know what we're doing, right? Because it's 6 o'clock. A draft starts at about 5. By the time 6 o'clock rolls around, our pick is going to probably be up.
Now, hold on, though. Hold on. You know where I'm going to go with this. Will it be there? Will we be picking within that first hour? Or is there
even
Johnny boy?
Even if we don't pick, like, we will have known that we've traded down.
True. That's true.
Which, by the way, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It bears repeating. I don't dread that scenario at all. This is not like previous years where I was like, oh, we're going to trade down again. I just know it. No, this year, bring it on.
Has it been? It's been the hard. I've made somewhat of the similar conclusion, and then I found a lot of people within the chat and stuff then start to, because they've been with you for a couple of years, like with me, where they'll come back and they'll go, "But wait, you hate this, and it's like, no, I hate this based on a given year of the draft and where the strength of the draft lies. Not just I hate it. Period. I hated when we did it when we were going forward and we needed upper level players. Not now when we're actually needing a multitude of players.
Right, absolutely, and I earlier this week put together a few of my favorite mock draft scenarios. 2 of them involved trade downs, fairly significant trade downs. So I am on board for that, especially if the draft breaks a certain way. But in about 24 hours, we will know if we've made the pick or if we decided to move down. And again, everything is contextual, right? If Thibodeau is there and we trade down, I'm not going to be so happy. But if all my favorite guys are gone and we trade down, then I'm thrilled, especially if we get a good deal. So it's all contextual.
Agreed. And like you, I still put at the height of my would be most happiest in trading back and gathering assets. Yeah.
Right. So there have been, before we get into what we would like to see happen tomorrow, because we have a lot of thoughts on that, of course, we should talk about some of these last-minute rumors that have come out around what the Seahawks may do. And the thing to understand is that a lot of these rumors contradict each other. So that tells you that at least some of it is fake. Maybe all of it is fake. But all these things cannot be true at the same time. You're not going to see the Seahawks take 2 quarterbacks in the top 100. That's not happening. So if you see a report that says, oh, the Seahawks are going to go after Ritter, and then you see another one saying they're going after Sam Howell, you know that one of those reports cannot possibly be true. Now, maybe the team is interested in both guys, but only one of those things can possibly be the case.
Right. That's what I was going to say with it too, is I think it maybe it's an indicator of, but then even that, I think there's so much of the, you're playing the counter Contel Pro spy game right now at this time of year as a front office, and you're going to leak things on purpose that you want to leak and keep things close to the vest that no one's ever going to hear about. And I got to say, when you look at our organization in particular versus maybe other franchises that maybe more hone in on guys that they keep things as close to the vest as anybody in the sport. They do, at least historically speaking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't matter what these guys say. It matters what they do. The Seahawks can leak all the rumors they want to about taking Trevor Penning. Just don't take him, But I think we do have to lead off by addressing that, because of the pre-draft rumors that I have heard, one of the stronger ones is that we have a great interest in Trevor Penning. And we've already spent some time talking about Trevor Penning. He has become kind of the running joke of my streams the last week or so, because people just watch him at the Senior Bowl getting worked by guys who are going to be like 3rd-round edge players at best, and about how the only reason why we're even having this conversation is because he had really good testing numbers at the Combine. So I think that's got to be where this conversation starts. So Trevor Penning, go.
I know sometimes maybe people would like to find us having more disagreement than we do at times, but this is where it is. We look at this as smartly as we can in this process and hopefully come out at a pretty cogent place when we get to the end of this. When we end of this with Trevor is, like you said, combine warrior at a combine, by the way, as you know, that has a lot of these guys now doing half the drills, fourth of the drills, maybe just the 40. Maybe I'll just get my arms measured and then I'll go do the rest of my stuff at the pro day. So then when your numbers bear out as the best of the best at that point, going up against not as many guys that you had to test up against to get to that measure, you got to then devalue it a little bit as this ultimate barometer for why we should pick the guy. Comes from this small school. The Senior Bowl tape, it's funny. It's almost like was the Rorschach test. It's like, watch this Penning tape of him at the Senior Bowl. And it's like, you can walk away from, you can kind of derive away a little bit from what you watch on that as a fan of whether or not you're just looking for tough guy type mentality stuff, or you're looking for truly a guy who can block the man in front of him and do so within the confines of the rules and not throwing the guy at his quarterback's feet, which he did a couple of times at the Senior Bowl after he'd gotten beat. Yeah. By the way, he did that because he got beat. He got beat. He's got the guy going past him. And that's why he ends up throwing him at the quarterback's feet to try to just to because he knows he's cooked. So I'm really out on him. We are in a passing league. We are in a league where even if you want to run the ball like we want to run, you're eventually going to have to pass the football. He is a guy who struggles mightily in pass protection. He is a big time work in progress. People might say, well, he's got the tools, and then you fix everything on the back end. That all sounds well and good, but I would say that they're very raw tools in those points. It's not like he's 60% of the way to getting to 100% of where you need him to be from a technical standpoint. He's probably about 40% of the way from where he actually needs to be in that area of things. And the big thing that might end up riling our Hawk fans on this, Brendan, just as a final point on this, you're hearing reports of Evan Neal, who was at one point going to be the top tackle to be off the board out of Alabama. And now you're hearing there are certain teams who have medically removed him off their board, supposedly. So could you imagine the scenario? Could you imagine the hand-wringing if the Seahawks at number 9 took Trevor Penning and passed on Evan Neal?
Yeah. You can kind of put it together in your head. I will say, though, I do expect this team to probably want to trade down very much over drafting Penning at 9. We'll get more into this later, but what I hope happens is that we trade down below the Ravens, and then the Ravens take Penning, and then we get the video clip of Pete Carroll throwing his binder across the draft room.
Slapping John.
And we will know that we have been saved from ourselves.
Yes. Screaming into John's face, "You cost me this! You cost me!" And he sees the camera and he stops and just reaches up.
Who was that receiver Jacksonville took that one year that ended up getting kicked out of the league almost immediately? Justin Blackmon?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin Blackmon. I remember Jeff Fisher did that with him because he wanted Blackmon with the Rams, and then Jacksonville took him like one pick before the Rams, and you could tell Fisher was furious. And he got saved from himself because Blackmon was out of the league after a year.
He took a guy like that in Britt at one time with Tennessee that was a similar player like that with like really talented off the field stuff that you had concerns with. So some Fisher had a thing, I guess, for receivers with off the field issues. They were uber talented.
Right. Yeah. Penning, to me, it's kind of like, okay, so you remember that Liam Neeson movie Taken came out like 13 years ago now? It's like you made the first Taken movie. It wasn't that great or anything, but it was fine. It was fun. That was like the James Carpenter pick, right? Like James Carpenter wasn't that great. He probably didn't live up to being a first round pick, but you won a Super Bowl with him starting. He did the thing. It was okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't need to make a sequel to it, but you did, like they did with Taken 2. And then we decided to make a sequel to that pick with Jermaine Ifedi, who was a lot worse than Carpenter, probably because you put him at the wrong position. But you really didn't need to make a Taken 3, and we really don't need to be filming a sequel to this offensive lineman who can't pass block thing. Like that's kind of how I'm looking at it, man. If we take Penning, that's going to take all the wind out of my sails when the draft starts.
It's going to at least make big rips through it, right? Like the pirate drops with his knife through the sail itself, at least opening it up to a degree there. It does for me the same thing for all the reasons that you mentioned. Athletic profile is great. That's fantastic. I'm glad that he fits the new scheme. But at the end of the day, can he handle edge rushers? is he going to end out just being what's likely one of two things to happen with him is one, he goes to right tackle and turns into an average NFL left right tackle who struggles in pass protection, or he goes into guard and maybe he can transition into them. But the more I've been watching tape on him even the last recent few days, Brendan, because of these rumors, you obviously dive back into the guy. He gets high. So if you're going to say, and this is what I thought even up to a couple of weeks ago, you're going to go to left guard with him, but his main struggle is then, as you know, with left guard, leverage is all about the more you get inside, the more it becomes about leverage. The more you got to have low man win. How is he going to get low man at 6'7", already getting with a tendency to get high in his set as it is? Again, we're back in the stage with a guy you're picking top 15 in this draft, even if you trade back potentially, who's a project. And it's, projects are all well and good, but do you want to be taking a project at the top end of a draft? And to me, that seems pretty silly.
Right. When I did my tier list, I actually think that the earliest I would be willing to take Penning and be at peace with it would probably be somewhere around like our second round picks, 40, 41. Yeah. If it happens there, that would be fine. But before then, I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, you've got let's take out the technical flaws. He plays at a small school, so you're going, okay, what he does at the Senior Bowl now has to carry a lot of weight because I can't quantify as much off of his film because he's not going up against SEC talent. He's not going up against Pac-12, Big Ten. He isn't going up against that. He's going up against much lesser competition. So then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and let's take away his tough man plays, his brawling crap. Just as he is as a player, it ain't there. It ain't there. And it has to carry more weight in that circumstance because of those conditions, in my opinion.
Okay, so that is one of the big rumors right now. Another one is that the Seahawks are interested in trading up with their second round picks to move into the back end of the first round to get their quarterback. It seems to me that there are currently three players that it could be. Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, and Sam Howell. And these three guys trying to gauge the level of interest the Seahawks have in them. It's like a horse race. The leader is constantly changing. Like a few days ago, it seemed like it was all about Ridder. But today, it seems like the Howell and Malik Willis rumors are starting to kind of cruise up into the front. And it'll probably go back and forth 6 or 7 times between now and our actual selections. So if we do move up to, say, pick 32 or 31, so we can get that fifth-year option on Ridder, Willis, or Howell, how are you feeling?
Not great at all. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to throw over my desk and punch a hole in the wall or whatever, but I'm going to be disappointed. You need players right now. And the quarterback position, I understand it's a position to address, but your offensive line is not in a position to bring in that quarterback right now. And this is one of my I talk about it probably too much, Brendan, but you've got to get your line right first before you get your quarterback, in my opinion, to put him in a chance to be successful. So much of quarterbacking with busts is not driven just by the guy's talent or his lack of ability to develop. It's also based upon where he goes. What are the conditions he's going to? Is he David Carr going to the Texans in 2004 with no offensive line, getting beat all to hell? And that's obviously the main cautionary tale for this, but it's happened many times over. And if you want to put a guy in a position to fail, that's the way to do it. And if you draft Ridder, you can talk all you want about giving him time, letting him sit, letting him have time to cook in the oven, up, bring out whatever you want to bring out as a metaphor. The bottom line is you're going to have him on the football field in 2022 behind this offensive line, developing bad habits, under duress. I don't want that. I don't see the benefit. And you're giving up a player to do it at that point on a team that desperately needs players right now. We need a quarterback too, but we need players. We are not close.
I'll say this. If it is Malik, I'm a little more okay with that because A, I do think Malik will be good. And B, I don't think he's going to play very much as a rookie. So you kind of could get that effect. But that being said, even with that, I would rather just wait for Will Levis next year. I feel like, you'd have an extra year of the rookie deal at that point because he would be in his first year when Malik would be in his second year. So I'm not super into it no matter who it is. But I think you could talk me into the Willis thing because I don't see him being ready to play in 2022, and you could kind of redshirt him. But you're right; it's still definitely not a preferred scenario for me.
And you would end up. Let me give you two sides of this. That'll give you a little bit of okay. I'll give you some of my plus side to this and thinking about it. But the other negative side of this, to your point on that, is you get him after this year, and the coaching staff goes, he's not it. Does this coaching staff have enough built in within this fan base to come back next year and then draft another quarterback high up in the draft and go, well, we took him, we want to draft him. We got our guy. I don't think they do. And so they don't get to arrive at the situation of truly sitting back there saying, hey, we missed on Ritter here. Now we got to go get the right guy if we're in a position to have enough picks to go do so. Instead, they're going to go, let's try to make it work with Ritter. Maybe we're needing to relook at this rather than no, the right answer is go get that guy when you go get him. As well as at that point, you still haven't properly, probably by that point in time, fully, invested in the offensive line the way you do for that guy because you're just chasing your tail a little bit with it. The plus side of it, I will say, Brendan, in looking at this, the quarterbacks, even up in the top ends of the draft, have like about a 30% washout rate. So there is a little bit of an argument to be put here of, don't look at a quarterback of I draft him once every 4 years and let me get my guy, or once until I get my guy. Keep drafting your guy, a la the Cardinals going from Josh Allen to Kyler Murray back-to-back years. If that's what's required, keep going until you land on your guy, which I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. I'm not, even though I can see the math behind that working and understand it, I still kind of go, nah.
I don't think you would take Malik Willis and then give up after 1 year because we know Malik Willis is a project. Now, Ritter, maybe, because he's supposed to be a relatively finished product, ready to start day one. Maybe you see something with him you really don't like the way the Cardinals did with Rosen. But, I mean, John and Pete should not have that amount of leeway with the fan base or ownership right now. Maybe they think they do. Maybe they know they do with ownership. But they certainly shouldn't, right? If you blow a first-round pick with a team in the situation that it's in right now, you absolutely should not get that free pass to say, we'll try it again. Because I'm pretty sure Arizona cleaned house after the Rosen pick and somebody else made the Kyler pick, right?
No, Keim's been there for 2 decades.
Keim? Oh, I'm thinking about the coach then, my bad. I'm thinking about they went from...
Yeah, Kingsbury.
They went to Kingsbury from, I can't remember who the last guy was. It was... God, I can't remember.
He was only there for a year, and it was like he was like a first-time coach. So yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, right. But yeah, I think that I would hope that they don't, but maybe they think that they do. But yeah, so the trade up for a quarterback. I will say this: if you can get Sam Howell in day 2, I've kind of come around on that. It took me a while, but looking at Sam Howell, if you could get him in like maybe the mid to late second round area, I am starting to get turned on to that. And I am a little bit excited that this team seems like they're actually into him in that range. But first round, I don't want to have to trade my second round picks. I really like this second round pool of talent. I really want to get these guys.
I'm amendable to the second round versus giving up that pick. It's that giving up that pick, moving up in a draft like this, where now you're losing a selection in a draft here where you should be trying to add selections, not lose selections. And while I do agree with you that Malik Willis is probably got the highest top end and by far of the quarterbacks in this draft, he also has just as big, if not the biggest bust factor of any other player of any other quarterback in this draft too, on the top end of things. And so you're in that first year, you going through the practices and you might learn, holy hell, this is stuff that we can't iron out. This is stuff that is that bust, what makes a guy a bust. Because with him, it's not going to be, doesn't seem like the intangibles or off the field stuff. He's got his head on right. He's all about ball, right? But you come to learn on the football field, he can't process. He can't, he predetermines every single throw. He's not going to be able to go through, those things could come up in that first year where you can't develop it. A la probably what the Packers ran into with Jordan Love in that first year of practice of what they saw with him and Aaron Rodgers, which is part of what's had them doubling back down to Aaron Rodgers at this point, at least to a small degree. Then I think it still does exist, and it then inhibits you on making that proper pick the year after where you should make it. And it just makes it, not only do you not get the right guy, but you're now marrying yourself to the guy that's the improper one under bad circumstances. But second round, at least then in the second round, now you've taken the first round, maybe potentially a lineman. You've got another one you can maybe grab in the second round. Maybe you can do more now through the rest of this draft to give that guy a little more around him. And the fifth year option to me, Brendan, I'm coming to feel like that's more and more overrated in the way that it's viewed by NFL teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess the issue with it is a really good quarterback is not going to let you get to that fifth year before he gets his money.
Bingo. Bingo. That's, I mean,
Mhm.
or any other player for that matter. People get caught up in this fifth round deal. It's like, yeah, okay. So guys after 3 years are like, give me the money. Come on, pay
Mhm.
me. Pay me. You're going to make them wait till year 5? Not unless, I mean, the only guy is Lamar Jackson. That's because him and his mom are his agent, I guess, or whatever. But I don't see how that anymore makes a lot of sense because players can do their hold in, and it's not a hold out, it's a hold in. It's, okay. So they
Yeah,
can be a problem.
right. Okay, so the other rumor of significance that I've been hearing in the last several days would be it involves what we might do if we stick at number 9. If we just stay at number 9, who we might be into. And Todd McShay has 2 guys that he thinks that we're really into at that point. He has Jordan Davis and Derek Stingley Jr. So last week we talked a lot about Stingley because we were talking cornerbacks anyway. And at that point in time, Stingley seemed to become the consensus mock draft selection for the Seahawks at 9. But have your thoughts changed at all since then?
In the tape that I've watched and following up, I did my initial view, go back and double check the second view. I looked at some of the last 2 years that have been quote unquote the bad film with him in little
Mhm.
spots. I haven't like watched game after game, but just, okay, what are we seeing? He's an elite cornerback. He's an elite cornerback. I'm not the least bit surprised if he ends up drafted in the top 5. I'm hearing rumors that the Texans might end up making him the
Mm,
pick.
yeah.
Look, he's deserving of being the selection. As I've been saying for a while now, he's a top 10 talent in this draft. If you're walking away with that at number 9, nobody should feel anything but happy by that. There are no certain things even in the top 10, but to walk away with a talent that deserves to be there, we're talking about Penning, who's really on the other side of this type of scale that we're talking about here. That's what we're wanting. And that's been, again, part of the problem in Seahawks recent drafting history is not drafting to the appropriate value for player in the proper position. It's a lot of times overdrafting or moving too far up for a guy versus where you could get him later. They've been a little bit better about it recently, but that wouldn't be that case there. Davis, I know I talked about Penning being a project man and that's something I don't want to drop in the top 10. The difference here being is that Penning comes in and you need him to be an every down starter. So his flaws and issues then are right there glaring from the moment he walks in on that lineup, and you're going to try to push him out of that lineup. Whereas with Davis, bar none minimum, at least what you're getting is one of the best run stuffing zero techs in the league. And
Mhm.
if you're asking him to do zero tech stuff, there's less of a need for him to have that pass rush quotient to him. He can just be a guy taking up blockers, causing problems. It's not a big an issue that if you don't have him doing like 4-3-1 tech, taking on 2, split the double teams, 1.5 gap, that stuff becomes a little less with 3-4 defense with him. So I'm a little more in favor of that because you can kind of work around he's very much a project, I think, too, Brendan. But I like him. Where are you at on both those two guys kind of late in the hour?
I mean, Stingley, I'm on board. I will actually be very relieved on stream, I think, if we
Yeah.
take him
Good
because
way to
look,
put it.
there are picks that you can make that end up being bad, but you can't really be blamed for it because anybody would have done that in that situation. Or
Yeah.
at the very least, a lot of people would have.
Yeah.
Like, if the Seahawks did not draft LJ Collier where they did in 2019, where do you think he ends up getting drafted?
Third round.
Yeah. Not a single Seahawks fan in the world, and you can't convince me otherwise. Not a single Seahawks fan was sitting there in front of the TV on draft day going, "Oh, we got to get this LJ Collier guy here in the first round." Not a single other GM in the league would have taken LJ Collier in the first round. So when that pick comes back and ends up being this massive disappointment to where he can't even get on the field in year 3, like literally left on the practice squad or basically the practice squad, it's not just a bad pick. It's a pick that is completely inexcusable at the time, and it gets worse as time goes on. But if you take Derek Stingley, you have gotten a guy who is clearly top 10 in this draft in terms of talent in the top 10.
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't work out, there's only so much I can say about that. So yeah, at the very least, at that moment, I will be like, we finally stopped trying to outsmart everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it with
Mm.
looking at with the through the LJ Collier lens, because I don't think, and I hell on draft night I called him a draft bust. I'm an idiot here on YouTube talking. How could I predict so well that LJ Collier is going to be a draft bust on the night of drafting, right? And it's because it was so obvious. To your point on no other general managers in that moment were going to select him there at that high of a position. And you're talking a little bit, if I'm, not to put words in your mouth, but being fundamentally smart. It's like on the basketball court, football, baseball, whatever, you have the fundamentals, getting your feet in the right place, getting your body position in the right place. Why can't general managers and front offices have fundamentals too? Which is you want to be smarter than the average bear, but you also don't want to overthink things to the point you're outside your fundamentals. Like, I can throw this ball 50 yards if I just sort of go off my back foot and I float it up off the backside. But it's like, yeah, but you're giving the cornerback then time to catch up to your receiver down the field. Stick back to your fundamentals. So you're talking to me a little bit about fundamentals. Not every outcome is certain. Everything's a risk. You could get this guy in tomorrow. He has his other foot list, Frank. Who knows? But what you can do at this point is he has the right talent to be there. He deserves to be picked there. And he's got a lot of star potential, as much star potential as any player in this draft. And that absolutely makes it at least a smart decision. There's times you can make all the smart decisions in the world over an offseason and spending money in draft picks, and it still fails. But they've not been doing enough of that, Brendan. Again, not to put words in your mouth, but they just haven't been doing enough of that in this respect of things to go back and say, hey, at least we're being smart in our process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I even think, and some people may disagree, but I think when this team drafted Aaron Curry, that was understandable at the time. That a lot of people were really excited about Aaron Curry. I remember Field Goals called him the next Lawrence Taylor. If we are lucky enough to get him at number 4, we have to take Aaron Curry. He's the best player in this draft. It's not even close. It's a joke. He's there at 4. And it didn't work out, but I don't know if that's a reflection of the general manager making a bad pick. It happened.
Yeah, I mean that, and with Aaron, it was I don't know with Aaron. That one was when that was also I think a draft too with Aaron that the draft was one of the worst drafts I think in NFL history, wasn't it? I mean that was one of those drafts where if you look at that whole first round, that's the Sanchez, that's the Mark Sanchez. I can't not say Sanchez. No, when I say his name, Sanchez.
Matthew Stafford, Jason Smith, number 2 overall. I don't even remember who that is.
That was Rams left tackle back in the day. But then
he didn't do anything.
You had Eugene Monroe. You had
Darius Hayward Bay. I remember when he died on the football field.
Top 10 pick in that draft, right?
Yeah. BJ Raji.
Yeah. It was a bad draft, which is part of what pushed that. But I do remember the time he was being looked at with that. He was being given that LT label, not just by Field Goals, but by quite a few people out there in draft circles with, and he had the build for it. He just didn't have the mind and the mentals for doing it. Again, another guy like we've talked about before. I'm surprised he's become a coach because he's a guy that struggled the process on the football field, struggled to read things on a football field. You wouldn't naturally say of that player, oh, he should be a coach.
Yeah, and my thoughts on the Jordan Davis thing are, if he's not going to be getting 6+ sacks a year, I'm having a hard time taking him in the top 10. I can't spend a top 10 pick on a guy who's just out there for the run. It's the Bobby Wagner problem all over again. How are you going to affect the game on third down? You need to either be good in coverage or you need to be good rushing the passer. Now, I will say this, Jordan Davis has a chance. You don't look at him and go, oh, he'll never be a threat to rush the passer. No, he ran a 4.77. He's got insane measurables, but we didn't see it at Georgia. So
it's there. There's a possibility of it. Like you said, you may be able to tap into it, but it becomes a lot of projection in that element of things. And as I've said, you can end up with just a Snacks Harrison, Snacks Harrison's a useful player. He can stop running. You're not running at the middle of that defense at that point. That's the one thing he at least does give you. So maybe there's not, there isn't as much a bust rate here for a project player, because at least I'm getting a level of floor of production in one realm of things. But like you want more impact if you're talking about picking in the top 10. I think a little bit with this, Brendan, I'm going to call them on this. This is a little bit to me of them playing the game, because I wouldn't naturally, even though they do need a zero tech, with the way this front office looks at things, I think what they're trying to do is get the Chargers or one of these other teams that really likes Jordan Davis sitting in the teens and thinks he'll fall to them to jump up, like the Saints that I'm hearing. We're talking with the Saints about maybe moving up with. And I think that's what they're doing with this, is they're feigning interest to try to drive that value back to getting somebody to move up from him.
Yeah, and that is a great segue into what I kind of want to do next here, because the last rumor of significance that I've heard over the last few days is that the Eagles and Saints are both trying to trade into the top 10, because I've heard the Eagles covet a receiver, and they don't think their guy, as some people think it's going to be Drake London, will be there. And the Saints want to move up. We don't totally know why, but they seem to want a top 10 pick. Now, we know the Saints are not going to be trading with the Falcons or the Panthers, right? That's probably off the table for obvious reasons.
Right. That's right.
And the Eagles probably not going to trade with the Giants for obvious reasons. That's going to be hard
100%.
to. It does happen, but I don't think it happens in a scenario like this where
No.
a team is like, we want help, and they're like, okay, we'll give you help, even though we hate your guts and hope you all.
Yeah. Not in that division. No way. I'm with you. It just doesn't, not where those teams are sitting and what they're behind the Cowboys. And what if you give that trade and you gave somebody a team to put them over the top that you'd never be forgiven by those fan bases.
Right. So I think it is very possible the Seahawks put number 9 in play for the Eagles and Saints draft picks, moving down to that 15, 16, 18, 19 range to get extra stuff on the back end. And here's my question. Do you think that if we offered up our number 9 pick and maybe one of our second round picks, could we get 2 mid-first rounders like the Eagles 15 and 18? Because I plugged it into the charts and it comes out pretty close to even if you do 9 and 41 for 15 and 18.
Close enough a kicker would get it done if you had to drive a kicker. You know what I mean? A throw in back end thing would probably be the difference if it was just but it's close. You're right. It's close enough. Would I do it? Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not losing picks, number one. So that's been my big thing with this. I don't want to lose selections. You're not stopped at that point, Brendan, from trading back on one of those picks to the 20s, picking on one, adding back the second rounder you might have lost if you wanted with one of those at that point, which is possible, especially if you have a team looking at a quarterback in that range, like a Willis. So look, that's almost, yes, 100, I'd be all over that scenario. You could also just sit there and pick and grab the best players, obviously, on the board too. You're going to get 2 really good players in there. I think the way the tier system in this draft works is that I do think 3 quarterbacks are taken in the first round, Brendan. I do not think any of these 3 quarterbacks are getting into the second. And I think that's going to drive, you're going to get one of them taken in the top 10. You're probably going to get one taken in the top 20 and probably one taken in the 20s. So that's going to push some of the value down the boards of players you wouldn't think are available, like a Jermaine Johnson type, who then become available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is actually how I led off my dream mock draft. We give up 9 and 41. Philly gives up 15 and 18. And obviously the key is that Philly has to desire that pick, and it sounds like they do because they want Drake London, I think, but a receiver. I don't know why they're taking another receiver. It seems like that's all they do these days over in Philly, but it hasn't worked out a lot, I guess, so they got to keep trying.
I guess they think that the broken clock thing is what they're playing, right? Twice a day it's right. Eventually, like, we got Devontae Smith. We missed on Arcega-Whiteside. We missed on Jalen Reagor. But then we got Devontae Smiths. And let's just keep going. We're definitely somewhat successful at this.
Yeah. Do I need to learn how to quit on Jalen Reagor? I still feel like he's good, and it just hasn't manifested yet. Do I need to learn how to quit him?
I'm not going to say I'm not going to say this from point. I don't feel like I tend to miss a ton on my draft prognosis of guys and the way I look at things when I come to my evaluations. He is one of my misses. He is one of those guys that, so if you're talking about me being out on him, I mean, I really liked him coming out. I felt like he was playing with bad quarterback play at TCU when he was coming out. I felt like he had he had the same kind of explosive elements, small man explosive elements to his game that you've seen in Steve Smith or Brandon Cooks. But he's made some at times really nice catches for that team, but he is not revered by that fan base, and they certainly would not shed a tear if they moved him out of town. So it seems like he is definitely showing some double D busty elements to him.
Okay, but anyway, so I have that trade happening, and then I'm doing this is my dream first round right here. We're getting 2 guys who are not going to bust. Like, I would say like 3% chance these guys bust. We're getting Linderbaum with 15, and we're getting Lloyd with 18.
Beautiful.
Can't miss.
Can't miss.
And at the minimum, you are getting 2 players who I think will be top 10 at their position for the duration of their career. But both guys, to me, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking like they could be top 2. They could be all pro level players. I love Linderbaum. And one of my hangups with the whole inside linebacker thing, heavily prioritizing it, is I don't feel like they impact the game enough on third down, but Lloyd absolutely will because he can cover and he's good on the blitz.
That's right.
So This, you can't really mess this up unless you move Linderbaum to tackle or something. Or if you make Devin Lloyd play nose tackle, or I don't know. I guess we might be the team that does that. But short of that, these guys are not going to miss.
No, and that's a good way to put it. You're not missing. And as I was saying, my next year I'm going to put this together on all the prospects I do and give them a factor rating. The 0 to 10 a star rating. So you have a player that you can go, he's going to be a starter. But what is that to really kind of put the upside in the right place, Brendan? And both these guys to me are like 8.5, 9s on the 10 scale of star potential that you speak to. And that's something that you can look at a Drake London. That's like a 7 to me. What's another first round guy out in the top end of this? Even like Evan Neal. Evan Neal's kind of like a 7. Charles Cross is like a 7.5. These guys would be like 8.5, almost sub 9 type quotient of star level players you're getting in the mid teens. And that to me would make it really hard not to sign off on it completely and stand up and applaud. That's tremendous value at that point. That's winning the draft before you've even gotten into the second round. That would be marvelous.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, in my next favorite first round scenario, let me run this one past you. This one's a little bit fancier.
Ooh.
But Seahawks trade number 9 to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh gives you number 20. They give you a 4th round pick this year and their 1st round pick in 2023. I ran it through the calculator. If you value the future first, like a current second, which generally speaking teams do, then it's about even. But is Pittsburgh maybe valuing their first next year more because they know they don't have a quarterback anymore and they think they might be bad? Or do they just generally value first round picks more than that anyway? What do you think? Am I shooting a little too high here?
I think from the Seahawks standpoint that they would sign off on it. I think I would sign off on it. I think it also makes a lot of sense as Pittsburgh being to me, they've been, Brendan, the one from this whole process I've been sitting there looking at going, they're just laying low in the weeds right now. That's all they're doing. They're not showing as much interest in Malik, but I expect them at some point or another to jump out and we be the team that made sense for them to do. It may not have, maybe they have no interest. I don't know. This is just I have nothing inside on that I've read on. Just this is what my feeling on it is, just makes so much sense. But if they did that trade, I'd do it. Now, Steelers are the quotient, though, of this that I don't think would sign off on this. They've got an offensive line that they just rebuilt last year. And you're going to get a guy in Malik Willis who, like you just said earlier on, is one of the rougher, again, high prospect with a high top end, no doubt about it. Like I said, the highest potential of any quarterback in this draft. But it's going to take some time. So you're giving Seattle, now you see where I'm going with this. You got your great defense, but you're giving Seattle your 1st round pick next year with still a questionable offensive line, a rookie who's probably not ready to start. What do they got? Mitchell Trubisky is the backup plan. And then they're playing in a division that's not necessarily the weakest of the weak in the NFL. I don't know if I see them putting that together. I don't see them necessarily doing that from that. But if they're willing, then I'd sign up on it.
Yeah, you might have to tweak it a little bit. You might need to throw in a little extra to get Pittsburgh to bite.
How about Denver 2nd round next year into the deal?
I mean, that's not too bad. Maybe, I mean, I would probably be willing to do it because having 3 1st round picks next year means you can do whatever you want, especially when you know more than likely one of those picks will be very high at least. So you can trade up to get Will Levis. You can trade up to get whatever quarterback you end up developing a thing for. Right. So having 3 1st round picks, which by the way, Pittsburgh could go one way or the other this year. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but they could be like 6-11 or 7-10. And we've talked about the Denver thing before. They're in the toughest division in football. They slip a little bit. Suddenly they're 7-10 looking up like, wow, how did we end up in the basement? So
you could end up with easily 3 top 10 picks. You could. None of those. Steelers and Broncos are solid teams. They're not the spectacular Buffalo Bill, Kansas City Chief level of they may reach that spot here, but they've got a lot of ground to trudge through to get there still. And there's just as much of a possibility of them going bad to the other side, especially if a horrible injury, TJ Watt, after Defensive Player of the Year, now suffers a torn ACL. Has that ever happened before, right? You laid it all on the line for the previous year. Now you got him out the whole year. How does that affect their defense instantaneously? And the same thing can be applied with Denver at certain key spots and players. So, I would definitely be willing to do it if Denver's willing to do it. I think it's smart. I'd be willing to up it a little. I mean, the second round for Denver, yeah, I'd do it because I'm gonna be a gambler here. I'm gonna count on Denver and Pittsburgh not being in that upper echelon of teams next year. And I know that they both have solid rosters, but I'll play those odds.
Yeah. I don't know if you would look at Pittsburgh and say, yeah, that's a team that's going to compete for a title this year. This might be an off year for them. But,
Right.
I mean, Roethlisberger gave them very little last year, and they still found a way to make the playoffs. So they could do it again with whatever Duck. What's the guy's name? The guy they nicknamed Duck. Is he still there?
I don't know. I've only called him Duck for now. I think he's gone actually now. I think he's floated on to other pastures or
Oh,
floated on to
Devlin
other ponds.
Hodges. That's his name. Devlin Hodges.
Yeah, Ducky, the Duck.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this scenario, as for what we do in the first round, I have a few different options that I would be fine with. I think my favorite would be the guy who keeps on slipping. Like every time I look up, this guy's down another pick or two in the mocks. It's Charles Cross. And I don't know why he's slipping, but every time I look up, it's just like, oh, he's guaranteed top 10, top 12, top 15, top 18, I don't understand how this is happening. But if it is happening, I would love to take advantage by getting a guy I would have been fine with at 9 all the way down in the teens or at 20.
Yeah. I don't understand it either. You can't, there's not some, even though the thing was like, well, he's too light. He only weighs 310 pounds. Like, when did tackles have to weigh 340 pounds to play the position right? And it's like, well, you can't, his arms are right. They got 34-inch long arms. So he's an inch longer than what you would like as the prerequisite for the position. And he's got upper level athleticism, and he's technically more advanced, in my opinion, than Ekawanu and Neal. Despite the fact Neal's played since damn near his freshman year. And I don't understand either why. I don't buy it. It's another one of those where I think just with the guy that some teams are laying low on because the tape is too clean. It's so clean with him. It's like you don't have to overthink it. Like all these Ekawanu is just nasty, right? Like he's slobbering angry and he's just going out there just to demolish people. But his technique is wild and all over the place. And Neal's to me been really clean. But like we said, there's people who have medical evaluations on him. There's people that don't love him in pass protection for certain. He's not as much technically as well off as Cross is, So I don't know, man. And then you got Penning on the other side of him, right? So it's like those top 4, you got the one clean guy. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if you watch a Rob Stanton or not, but he's hated Cross ever since this started. He thinks Cross is like a second rounder. Yeah. I don't know if it's like just a British thing to hate everybody, but I kind of feel like that's the Rob Stanton way. I don't know.
I love Ross. I do love Rob, but he is definitely he gets feisty. Like it's just he definitely he definitely gets feisty. God bless him, man. He's awesome, and he does some good art. I like him as a source because he does a lot of good hard work over there. But yeah, I do disagree with him on this case of things. I think Cross is a pretty safe player to get. And there's, again, with the tackles in this first round, Bernard Raymond, Trevor Penning, Ekawanu, who might end up becoming a guard. With all those guys that do have questions, you have one that doesn't. But how does that guy last to 20? Just logically speaking, it doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah, you are probably right. But there are some other guys that might be available at that 20th pick if we did that Pittsburgh trade that I would definitely have some interest in, like maybe Trent McDuffie, maybe George Karlaftis if you think you can figure out a way to use him. I do think he will be there. So, yeah, that's just a general guideline.
It's tough on George, isn't it? Because you watch it and you love him a lot as the tape, but then you're just thinking so much about where the scheme is going. And it sucks because you could be in a position to really like Karlaftis, love Karlaftis as a player, but you're like, yeah, but we're committed to the 3-4 elements, and we just can't see him standing up and being good enough in that range of things. But boy, he's just all around great. The best power rusher in this draft. Do you feel that way with him, or are you just kind of lukewarm on him?
I definitely like him. I just don't see the fit in this defense. To me, it's kind of like with Trevon Walker, I think is actually how you pronounce it. I just don't know if he's going to be the right fit for what we're trying to do on this defense. But we don't know what this defense is going to be ultimately. The only people who do are supposed to be Carroll and Desai and Hurt, right?
Yeah. Well, if they drafted Karlaftis, would you just be encouraged then if they did and be like, yeah, that's a good pick?
I would assume, and this would be very dangerous on my part, I probably shouldn't do it, but I would assume that the team understands what he is and they have some plan to utilize that.
Yeah. I would too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be discouraged by a pick of Karlaftis. He's too
Mhm.
clean. He's too safe of a player to me at the next level. He's going to be productive wherever he goes.
Charles Raleigh, thank you for the $5. Killer Bees, appreciate you both. Can't wait for the 9th pick. Well, thank you, Charles, and we can't wait either. Can't wait.
Hell yeah, Charles. Good to see you in the chat, man.
Yeah, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little bit here, but welcome to the show. The only other first round scenario that I outlined in like my dream mock drafts would just be stick at 9. I've given up on Thibodeau. I don't think he's going to be there. I've given up on Sauce. I don't think he's going to be there. So I went with Derek Stingley. Of the guys who could reasonably be there at this point, he's my favorite. And yeah, that's pretty cut and dry, simple. Do you have any first round scenarios that you would be really, really happy that did not encompass what I just went through? Anything else that you're into?
I think both of those two that you mentioned are both in that realm. I'll say maybe just as another one, if you do need to flip back, let's say maybe Washington's in love with Hamilton and they want to bump up to 9. And even if it's a 3-step, 4-step process there to pick up an extra pick, I guess it goes without saying that we both be in favor of doing even that. If it's not the major go back move you talked about, Stingley, as much as I like him, is not enough to make me just sit there and reside there. Versus if there's a decent, like if they offer me a 3rd round pick to move up 4 spaces, a high 3rd round pick at that, I'm not going to turn that down, and I'll find a good player within that.
Yeah, to me, the thing that I'm really looking at here would be to move back with Minnesota because I think Minnesota will want Stingley, and maybe you get Minnesota's 3rd round pick. If we move back a little bit, that's my idea.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And by the way, I'd throw even back a 5th to them if they need to make that, to sweeten that, to get that to happen. Because like I've said, the thing to me is inside the first 75 picks, the more picks we can get in that range, Brendan, in this particular draft, the better. The more I've looked at these back end prospects in this draft, I don't know if you agree, but I'm not as excited by tier 3. I don't think tier 3 has a lot in it in this draft. There's some guy there's a here spark here or there, but there's a lot of tape I've watched of these guys. I counted them up to 220 names I got through in this draft. And some of these guys at the back end of it, I'm just going, it's just not there. It's not there. So I'd like to make my swing in that tier 2 range in this particular draft of things. Would you agree as well? Neither of us want to get into the mid-20s. Stay away from the mid-20s.
Unless you're getting a future first, like I outlined in my Pittsburgh scenario, then I can deal with it because then you have 3 firsts next year. And I feel like it might be more important to load up on picks next year because that's when you start looking for the quarterback. And I mean, I could just be projecting myself onto this. I really feel like Will Levis is going to be QB1 and maybe prospect 1 by the time we get there. You might need that top pick to get him.
But what if it's a team though that you're doing, it's 25, 26, it's Packers, it's Kansas City, and that's gamble that we're talking about. Yeah, like that gamble of they're going to fail is not as likely to happen. And you go, well, it's going to be a 25 next year that we're getting back on this one, and that'd be where I would be, hesitant. Like Pittsburgh's kind of for me my floor on that, where it's like I don't want to drop further back than this, other than it's got to be really enticing to want to go get it.
Well, if we drop back to 11 or 12, who would you be targeting there? Because I kind of have an answer for me. It's a guy we haven't mentioned yet today. But who are you targeting in that area?
If we go back to 11 or 12, I might give you an answer too that's outside the box on this one. Let's go both outside the box on this one that we haven't mentioned, because this is a guy I like a lot. Zion Johnson.
Oh, it would take a minute for me to come to terms with it. But I mean, I think he'll be good. I just don't really want to spend a top 15 pick on a guard unless I think he's going to be the best guard in the league. And I don't know if I believe that with Zion Johnson, but
let me sell you on it. Let me give you a sales job on this.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years, one of the more silently becoming more of a valued position that is the more harder position to find in the NFL is the specific left guard position. You've watched it free agent period after free agent period. We've seen it the last couple of years. Right guard, Brandon Scherfs, and all these top end names of the right guard that are these like, hey, that guy's a good player. That guy's a good player. Why would they move on from that guy? Why Shaq Mason going from New England? He's a good player. Left guards, on the other hand, are a little bit more valued. They carry a little bit more weight taking on those 3 techs as they do the majority of the time. Those Aaron Donald types that they do. And to me, with you look at Zion Johnson, he's the best left guard in this draft. He is very clean as a prospect. His testing numbers were legit. I think that, again, we talked about Devin Lloyd and Linderbaum. He fits for me in that same sort of similarly safe category. Maybe he's not an 8.59 star level. Maybe he's an 8. But still, you're now getting the best left guard you've had in here since Steve Hutchinson.
Okay. I mean, I value that. I guess I'm not married to the idea of giving Phil Haynes a year, but I do think that Phil Haynes, like, there's something there. I will say that.
They got him a right guard right now. You know that, right?
Yeah, but I think that's going to change eventually, right? Like there's going to be a mutiny in the coaching room.
Brandon, one thing we've got to learn at this point is we keep thinking that the straightforward, intelligent thing that even a man who's at the IQ level of Forrest Gump would certainly do. We've got to understand we've played this part with them enough in the past. We can't play that game. You know, when they're saying right guard, we sometimes have to take him at maybe he will, man. I mean, it took him 4 years to play the kid, you know. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So if we get back into that range, the other guy I would be kind of looking at there would be Jermaine Johnson. Like, I'm a little off Jermaine Johnson at 9. I feel like that would be okay, but not my favorite. But if you move back to 11 or 12, then I could actually kind of fist pump a little bit to get a guy like him. I don't know if that's outside the box, though. That's something that a lot of people have been talking about, but that's who I would be targeting there.
That's great value for him. There's late hour talk right now of him going even ahead of Thibodeau. Could be, again, a lot of this smoke screens up, but I'm reading in certain reports on this that there's some NFL people that have them higher. He's got everything you want, man. He's got all the components in a pass rusher: size, length, get off, ability with his hands, bend. Fairly consistent this last year. I think he is kind of just a 1 year wonder, but watched him at the Senior Bowl as well, and he really stood out. One of the guys that was one of the better edge rushers in that week. There was a lot of edge rushers that stood out, quite frankly, including in the game, and he was one of the guys at the top of that mark. I love his upside, and that's what you're wanting to draft at this point, is guys with that type of upside that they're bringing the game in. So he could do it. Let him rush from the Leo side, blind side, wide 9 technique, stand up outside linebacker, whatever you want to call it. Let him go from there, and he'll be really good in that from that side. I will say, though, I am thinking about it. I feel like he did do a lot of his stuff from sort of a 5 technique out there at last year in college, but he did like a 1-5-5 10-yard split. Brendan, he's got all the stuff they want there for the Leo. So it's fine.
Yeah. I think he will be able to figure that out. Okay. So now let's turn the page a little bit to the second round here. This is where we currently have 2 picks back to back. It's a very interesting part of this draft for me. And I laid out a few scenarios that would be part of my ideal Seahawks mock as well. In the second round, if we go Linderbaum Lloyd, and again, to me, the draw of Linderbaum Lloyd is that those guys are not going to bust. They're going to be very good at worst, and at best, they're giving you some of the best players at their position for 10. In the case of Linderbaum, by the way, who is only 22, you could have him for 15 years because centers play forever sometimes.
They do.
Like, look at Alex Mack. So you get those 2 guys, then you can roll the dice a little bit in the second round. So I went with Boy Mafe because I do recognize he has tremendous bust potential, but he also has tremendous upside. So he would be the guy that I would go with if you go Linderbaum Lloyd in the first. So we've talked a little bit about Mafe before, but how you feeling about him at the moment?
We still have our 2 in this scenario. We still do have our 2 second round picks, right? I don't want to.
No, this was the one where I traded it to Philly to move. Yeah.
Okay. So if Mafe falls there, that's perfect value. There's some that think you should even creep into the first round with his profile, and with his age and all that stuff that you put in. He might. So I can't argue with that. I wouldn't hate that pick at all. It's great. I lean more Abraham Lucas at that point. But again, this has been kind of a long cherished thing for me out throughout this offseason when I look at this draft of, you have these 3 picks. What if you put 2 to the offensive line? What if you really started to hammer that offensive line from a quality standpoint, as opposed to always treating it like the final thing you'll get to on your list of gotta do's? And I look at Lucas and I feel like he's a really, really safe prospect to be landing on the second round. Again, maybe not a guy with the high star potential, but he'd be like to me, he's a 7.5 guy on that chart that I mentioned that you're now getting in the second round. Your Mafe, by the way, would be up at probably like an 8.2. He's got through the roof potential. So you are getting a guy at that point that is, there's more ceiling than what you're getting with Lucas. But I think Lucas's floor at that point and the need from my standpoint to want to build towards the offensive line would maybe be driving that just a little bit.
Do you value Lucas over Falele at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, we kind of went. I remember we kind of went back and forth on that this season. It was tough. It was like, I feel like Falele's ceiling is higher, but man, his floor is a lot lower. So that's probably the
Falele's got a
smart thing to do.
9. Falele's got a 9 on his ceiling. On my star chart, that's higher than Lloyd, higher than Linderbaum. He's got a higher potential ceiling than both of those two guys. But his bust factor is also on the, it's like both sides go, like both arrows going this way, right? Like his bust factor is just as equivalently huge, whereas Lucas just doesn't have that. And I think that I love Daniel's potential. I think he's going to be dominant. I think he's going to be really good. But I know, I don't think with Abraham, I know what he's going to be at the next level. Great in pass protection and good enough as a run blocker.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty fair assessment. I've had a crush on Falele for a long time now, so it's hard. I don't know how to quit him, you know?
I know. Hey, I ain't shedding no tears on Falele. You know, I'm an equal appreciator of that guy. And if they did it, I wouldn't hate it. Abraham just kind of grew on me over time. But Daniel, to me, the people that are knocking him right now and get harping on his testing, like, no, I don't want to hear it. Yeah, a guy 6'9", the weighs 380 doesn't run a 5 flat 40. Who would have ever thought? That doesn't matter. He's huge and long, and he's going to be good. If we take him, perfectly fine with that. Perfectly fine. So I won't. There are no tears to shed on that, and they're both close. But that Lucas would be a little safer, I think.
Yeah. In the mock where we traded down with Pittsburgh, so we went down to number 20. So we have both of our second round picks. I went with the double whammy of Ebiketie and Travis Jones.
Okay.
So you're rebuilding your defense with that. And I'm really excited about both prospects. Ebiketie, I'll tell you, I was not into him until his combine. And I know you don't want to overreact to the combine, but he showed the ability to do 3-4 outside linebacker stuff. So that kind of turned me on to him. So how would you feel about that one too?
Good. I think you had Cross as your guy in your scenario there at the top. So you've addressed the offensive line a little bit there, which is good for me. Ebiketie is a guy to me. I'm like you, slow burn, a little slow warming up on that one. But the more tape you watch of him, the more I guess I like him. I can't pick a lot apart away from his game. He uses his hands really well. He's got an ability, as I've said, I've called him the crossface killer because he can just get across those tackles' faces at will sometimes, even not setting him up to get him to overset wide. He's just really good at that. Travis Jones is a guy that would not surprise me if 5 years from now we're talking about Travis Jones the way everybody thinks that they're going to see Jordan Davis, that he becomes the player everybody thinks Jordan Davis is. The guy's getting slept on by a lot of people. I feel like he's not talked about enough. Frankly, I think he should be probably a first-round pick. But it's as much just the teams don't see the value of the position as much there, not because he's not a great player, which he is. So your draft would be an awesome scenario. I would be very happy through the first 2 days if those are the guys that I would walk away from. I wouldn't argue with either of those two picks you made as far as, you need to go this direction or that direction, especially if you've taken care of the tackle. Okay, let's say it is Penning instead of Cross, which at 20, you can make your little more bones and peace with getting Penning there if it is him instead. But then going, like you said, to the way you did there with the defense in the second round heavy, that's fine. We know they're probably going to do that, Brendan, right? We know with these first 3 picks, if it's just 3 picks, 2 of them are likely to probably be defense with Coach Carroll still running this show.
All right. My last mock draft had the second round going like this. At 40, this is probably a little bit of a reach, but I don't think it's by enough to care. I got Breece Hall, running back, Iowa State. We're going to run the ball a lot. We need insurance because already I think we're getting indications that Chris Carson's not going to play to start the season and may never play again. And Rashad Penny, while I do like him and I do think he's going to do good things for us, we can't count on him to play 17 games. We can't. So I went with Breece Hall. I think he's going to give us a lot of value on that rookie deal. Then I had us trading down with Philly 10 picks with our other second round pick to pick up a third rounder, their compensatory third rounder.
Okay.
So we trade 41, we get 51 and 101. So you move down 10, you pick up another third rounder.
Okay.
And at 51, I went another one of my draft crushes, Troy Anderson, linebacker, Montana
Oh yeah.
State. And he's going to be playing quarterback, of course. We're going to Taysom Hill this thing.
That's right.
And
Hell yeah.
yeah,
It worked well for the Saints. Why not, man? Hey, I
yeah.
got him a contract. Let's get this kid paid. I love it, man. I love it. I think that the draft, this tier 2 chart, it drops at about like between 5 to 10 picks into the fourth round based on these are just general numbers that I've ran looking at it. That's about where that tier 2 drops off at. So you getting that compensatory pick still kind of puts you inside that period of just dropping back those 10 picks. It gets an extra pick in that tier 2 range is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Nothing but love on that. I Troy Anderson. I've had some fun back and forth with people. There's some folks I have in my chat who love Leo Chanel more. I had a mock I ran where I took Anderson over Chanel, but I'm just an Anderson guy, man. I think he's just tapping into it. So it's a lot like why I like Daniel Falele as much as I do, or some of these other guys where I look again, as I say, to what is the ceiling? What is it, what I can tap into? I mean, it's on the coaching staff to do, and the front office do their homework about the guy in the background, and the coaching staff to do the work that needs to be on the field to refine their technique. But what we can't control is whether or not the guy's got the ceiling in the first place to deal with. And to me, I look at Troy Anderson, the guy who has barely played the position, yet shows so much natural instincts for the position and ability for the position that you go, God, if he's just this natural without barely, putting his foot in the water, what happens when he does the full, cannonball? And I think he's got another guy on that star potential chart. To me, Leo Chanel's like a real safe guy, would be like a 7.75 on the chart. This guy's a guy with a little bit of that 8.85 potential to him. As far as star, because he's just learning how to do it. Just learning how to do it.
Right. I remember going to some really sketchy sites trying to find his stats. Like you can't even find them on the normal websites.
No.
But he's something else. He's something else. 4.38 40 as a middle linebacker who weighs 250.
250 and like watch his tape, folks. Go watch Troy Anderson and go watch his tape on a full cut up of Montana State defense for just one game. And what you're going to watch is every time there's a running play that comes up through the middle of the defense, he's taking the lead blocker and throwing him aside, just completely effortlessly disengaging from the blocker to get to the ball carrier. He does it over and over again. You would not expect to see that out of a guy who just transitioned to that position. That would be something that you would think would take a lot longer in the process to come along in that part of the skill set. You'd think he could run sideline to sideline and have that, but the ability to just have the technique to just suddenly get it off, get himself back in a position to make the tackle, and it be just easy peasy. It jumped out to me as much. And then he's got the, like you said, 4.38 coverage skills, can run like a deer. There's a lot to get excited with that guy's game.
Yeah. I was doing mock drafts on stream a few days ago, and I did one mock. It was on a web. It was a very unlikely mock, but I got Devin Lloyd with one of my first picks because I traded back. And then I saw Troy Anderson in the third, and I got so excited, I forgot that I took Devin Lloyd, and I just took him. And then a few minutes later, people in the chat were like, "Wait a minute," and I just said, "Okay, he'll play quarterback. It's fine."
Tight end. We'll get him a tight end. I've done that. Isn't that the worst? Is when you get a draft and you do take the right player, but then one guy that lands later on. They're like, "Oh, if I had known that, I would have gone with the other guy up at the thing and done that."
Yeah. The first mock draft I did was on PFF. And I got Thibodeau with the number 9 pick, and I was really happy. But then their simulator stopped loading, so I had to restart. I could not get Thibodeau again. I tried it 10 times, and every time he goes to the Giants or something. It was just really? I had it.
Well, that's when you start to think, man, it is smart. It's like, I can't trick it, because if you can usually trick software somehow or another just by hitting refresh, for instance, is the most basic trick, but you couldn't, it's where it's a little bit of value in it. It gives you some general views of way things could go.
Charles Riley, thank you for the $5. Lay down the cards, Killer Bees. What's your gut tell you on 9? Do they draft a player? If so, who, or do they trade? Just asking for a best guess. Oh boy. I think it just so heavily depends on who's there.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
For my part, I'll go first here real quick. I think the fact that the Saints and Eagles want to trade up means we're going to end up trading down. One of those two teams will make a deal with. That's my guess.
I agree. I think we do end up trading down. I don't think that we get what neither me or Brendan would want to get here, which would be a second round pick for doing so, or to the first round scenario that Brendan talked about is ideal. I think instead we end up having to make our bones of the fact we're moving to 15 or teens for a third round pick. The John becomes just so desperate to move back, that he so wants to move back, that's enough value to do so.
Yeah, that if we end up doing something like that, that would infuriate me, because that's the thing, right? We love to trade down so much. Teams figured it out and realized, hey, we don't have to offer them anything. They'll just do it.
Right.
So, like, the last 2 years, we got away from that. We didn't trade down for the Brooks pick or the Eskridge pick. And I was like, okay, we finally figured out that we can't do this anymore. But if we get swindled again, it's going to infuriate me almost as much as the theoretical Penning pick would.
And that's the problem with this, Brendan, is that infuriates you on the front end, and then you land on Penning. So you first get the infuriation of, we just flipped back to 15 to get a third round pick that's sitting like 17 in the third round, and now we're going to take Trevor Penning, and here's your beginning of the draft. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like that's in the, like, oh God, this is going to be a strap in, folks. We're going to be in for a bumpy couple of days here.
All right. So any other maneuvers you can imagine in the second round that we didn't just discuss? We did the Mafe, we did the Ebiketie Travis Jones, and we did the Breece Hall trade back Troy Anderson, and you brought up the Abraham Lucas. Anything else that you would be into with our second rounders?
Only, of course, we could do the Tim Ruskell move in 2007, where we offered one of the future seconds for a first, which we already talked about getting future first capital. So even if that was Brendan on that one, a Kansas City Chief, a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, I would sign off on doing that. Mm-hmm. Would you? If even knowing it was going to be a later first round pick at that point.
I mean, the thing is,
that's your floor on the pick.
I mean, hey, the Brady thing has to stop eventually, right? Like, it's like the cocktail line. Everything ends badly, or else it wouldn't end. So maybe this is the year it finally ends badly. But I think I would, because you can package your 3 first-round picks to move up to get whoever you want if you do end up being into Levis or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think I would. I do really like the second round, though, so you're going to have to kind of blow me away to actually make that trade happen.
It's crazy if you want. That would be the offer, though. Probably. Well, maybe you'd get an extra pick this year, so they give you like future first next year, and then you get like a fourth this year back in return to do it.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so third round, and I've got a few scenarios here as well. Mm-hmm. If we don't get Charles Cross, then to me the play in the third round would be to get Petit Frere from Ohio State, who I definitely butchered that, but I can't do anything about it now. It's in the past. I think that if we don't get Cross and we still want a guy who can start day one, it's either Ryman, who I think is going to be a second rounder at least, or Petit Frere, who I think will be a third rounder. He's one of the guys I would look to if we still need that left tackle.
Solid options. Raymond's getting the same sort of prognosis I'm hearing on Neal, where some teams are dropping him because of medical stuff. Don't know if it's true, just what we're hearing with him. One other name I'd give you on top of that, Nicholas is fine. He's really good. He's going to take a little time to develop, but the key here is to understand in the third round, if you've not gotten a left tackle by this place, you're not going to get him, because you've got the three options you mentioned. Raymond's probably off the board. Petit Frere probably is on the board, maybe. And then Rasheed Walker from Penn State would be the only other guy who the Seahawks, of course, met with. If you don't go with those two guys, I know I'm not a big man. I'm not a big guy.
Here's my thing. Even if I did like him, I think he's going to be a right tackle at least at first. So I'm thinking about the left tackle quandary more than
I don't know. I think he can play left. To me, he's got the athleticism to do it, size to do it, length to do it. It's just a matter of, do you get the guy's head on right to do it? And I mean, maybe they move him over there, but everything I've read on him is that he's going to be projected out at left tackle, just as long as he can tap into what he is. But here's the key on this. If you don't go Rasheed, let's just take Rasheed out. You don't go Nicholas, you don't go Bernard Raymond. At that point, all the top three are off the board. Penning's off the board. Tyler Smith's off the board. This means you're down to Dare, a guy named Dare, like the program Dare Rosenthal and Braxton.
I remember him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So those are your two options at that point. It goes from to to cliff stage really quickly
Yeah.
at that point with those
At
guys.
that point, just see what you have with Forsyth, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much. You start to arrive at that spot where it's like, well, I guess we're either that or we're bringing back Dwayne Brown for another year here, because
Mhm.
it's not doesn't make none of these guys really make much sense in the deeper trenches at the left tackle position.
Right. So the other, like my other top targets in the third round, and of course everything is contextual. It depends on what you didn't address earlier, right?
Right.
But if we haven't heavily addressed edge by the third round, then I'm hoping Sam Williams is still there. And
Mhm.
based off what I'm seeing, he could be. I don't know why. To me, he should be very close to the Mafe range, but he's one of my favorite guys that I think you could get in the third round. He might be my favorite, period.
Me too. I've got a second round grade on him. So if you have him in the third round, then that would be a marvelous draft value from my standpoint of things. Don't know why he's getting pushed as much either. His tape is just as impressive, if not more so impressive, than Boy Mafe. To me, I'm watching him. Um, I'd have a couple guys. I give you an addition to that. I think Drake Jackson's off the board by that point out of USC. The other
Yeah.
two guys that would be interesting to me would be D'Angelo Malone, who
Hmm.
the Seahawks have met with. Really, really fun player to watch on tape with him. And then potentially two other guys. One may not make a lot of sense, but unless they're doing some 3-4, Josh Pascal, of course, and then
Hmm.
David Ajabo.
Yeah, I just think Ojabo's going to go in the second. Some team is going to talk themselves into it. I just don't think he's going to be there in the third. I got to be honest.
Have we ever had a player who's torn his ACL and gone in the second round? I guess
Didn't
Sydney did. Yeah. So
Sydney?
you're right. Sydney did.
Yeah, but you got to remember Ojabo. We were talking about him at number 9 before he tore his Achilles.
Hmm.
So I don't think, and I don't know if this is the right way to look at it, but I have had a few people in my chat talking about this, and they've said that, as a cornerback, Sidney Jones is running 30, 40 yards down the field. Ojabo's only running 5 to 10 yards. He's doing everything. So they're basically trying to say, I don't think the Achilles is as big a deal for him as it is for a guy like Sidney Jones. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think there's at least a kernel of truth there.
Um, I mean, yeah, maybe the main thing that it robs is explosiveness, and the main thing you need as a pass rusher is at times the first thing you need as a pass rusher is explosiveness. I'm trying to go through my memory banks. Maybe you can help me on this one. What's a pass rusher that we can think of in history that suffered a torn Achilles, not an ACL, a torn Achilles, and come back and been dominant?
I mean, I can't think of too many examples of torn Achilles, period. It's
Right.
almost always the ACL. So
That's right.
I can't think of too many off the top of my head. You're probably correct. But I think some team is going to look at the fact that he was going to be at least a top 20 pick and figure, he's fallen far enough. Let's make this happen.
Well, like I said, there's a baseline here with the Eagles doing it with the cornerback position. It definitely opens the door more. He's a young guy, so he's not an older prospect, which opens that door more. If he was there in the third round, then is that a running to the podium?
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, third round picks miss all the time. At least take a guy who should be going in the top 10, if not for the injury. Sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, interesting. He'll be one of the more interesting guys to see where he goes. But that's the one thing I wonder when teams look at that, because I was trying to think about that as well. Is like, can't think of it. And here's the thing: there maybe have been somebody, but the thing is like the ACL. You have the Adrian Peterson season he had back 10 years ago, where he comes back the year after the ACL, and it becomes this shining moment of see, you can come back from this horrific injury that used to like cost players their whole career, and now you can come back and be dominant. But I don't have that story for the torn Achilles. I don't,
Mm.
not to that degree. I've got like linebackers that have done it, but it took them like years, like Thomas Davis type, that took him years to finally get himself
Hmm.
back to front on that, where he was pretty good near the end of his career. But
Did it happen to that safety, the guy who played for the Steelers in Super Bowl 30? What was his name? Woodson? Didn't
Rod
he
Woodson,
yeah, it might have been Rod Woodson. I think he suffered a catastrophic injury and actually made it back to playing the Super Bowl that year and still had some gas left. But you're right. I mean, we're not exactly flooded with examples here.
yeah, it may be. I'd have to look at that. I can't remember if he had that or not. I know he did go to safety shortly after that point, though, with the Ravens, where he stopped being a corner and turned to a safety once he was with them.
Yeah, I have D'Angelo Malone near the top of my fourth round tier. I don't know if I view him in the third round yet because he did play at such a small school, but I do like him. I just don't know if you need to spend a third round pick to get him. We'll
His
see.
his tape just popped so hard for me, and then his Senior Bowl, I felt like he was right there with a couple of those other guys we've talked about. Jermaine Johnson, he was right there step for step with Jermaine Johnson in his effectiveness, use of hands, bend, dip, explosion off the snap. I liked all of those traits that he put together, like the same way in, with Jermaine. Jermaine's better, but with Malone, that's why I vaulted him up a little bit higher into the third round. What about
Yeah.
Zachary Carter?
Oh, I don't know if I've actually looked at Zachary Carter, so you've got the floor for this one.
Let me get my notes on him real quick because he was like one of my first guys I looked at on my deal, but I did have him in my third round. Oh, I saw him as very similar to DeMarvin Leal out of Texas A&M. He's an
Mhm.
inside outside tweener body type. Probably can do some 3-4 stuff in a 3-4 scheme. Can do some defensive end stuff. Could do some 3-tech stuff too because he's got like he's 6'3", 285, 33.5-inch long arms, so he's got the length they look for. Decent numbers, 4.99, 40, 27.5-inch vert, 9.2 broad. Nothing that jumped out there, but again, a bigger guy. But I liked his play. I liked his play. I thought he was a good natural. And again, third round deep, I'd probably like a little bit deeper into the third round, honestly, with this one. He's a sub,
Mhm.
he's right there for me on my between third to fourth round kind of guy.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that would be like if you traded back with Philly to get their third rounder at
bingo,
101. Yeah.
bingo. That would be the guy that you might look at sort of, targeting there. So yeah, I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, and if we do want to do the quarterback this draft, then I'll point out my guy is still Carson Strong in this range. I do wonder if he's going to slip to the fourth because of the knee. Maybe everyone chickens out, but uh, uh, being ignorant to that, I do think that he's a third round guy, or should be at least. But I do wonder if he's going to slip to the fourth because of the knee.
It's the thing I don't understand with that too. It's just like how there's variance of opinion. Like doctors can look at that same knee and, reports I hear on it is it's supposed to heal back off of the surgery, but then it's like we don't get I haven't gotten the real certain truth on this, I feel like, as to where the knee really is at. I feel like I've gotten some what I heard is that he could have sat out last year and waited out. By playing it wasn't going to hurt anymore, but it's going to take a year to recover from the surgery. So that's why he looks so at times. It's like he plants and you can see his little knee shake like that, Brendan. His little knee goes like that when he plants sometimes, and you're like, oh my God. So, but if it's going to be fine a year from now, then this upcoming season, he's got the arm talent. I was going back and watching his tape this last week, and I mean, my God, he makes some throws. Especially he moves right, and then he'll uncork a ball back across his body to the center of the field and split it between two defenders
Mhm.
and do that on the often. And you're just like, woo, okay. Kid's got a bit of a cannon on him.
Yeah. Also had Tariq Woolen in the third round area, one of my favorites in that range. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't take him in the second, but in the third, yeah.
No argument there. Tariq, I've got him as a third round guy as well. So I definitely would have him up there at the height. Him and Alontae Taylor would be my two corners at the top of the third round that I'd have up there if I'm looking at target corner. What about Nick Bonito? If he falls.
I did scout him. I actually did put him near the top of my I called it the iridium tier because I did my tiers based off the most valuable precious metals. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my like third round tier. I did put him near the top. I put
Iridium.
him right underneath Woolen and above Drake Jackson, which maybe Drake Jackson needs to be bumped up a little bit, but I don't know. There was just something about him that made me feel like he wasn't going to be a good fit.
No,
Like
it's a.
apparently he's
I,
not good against the run or something.
yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to. He's got such a long, tall body. Standing up just 3-4 doesn't. I don't know if that's going to suit him as well. In what I saw on the tape, he's a more of a pure 4 down defensive end type to me in what he does. But I also you sec third round, fourth, right in there in Drake. Where do you have Drake? You have him in the third, then, right?
I have him in the third. Yeah.
So I have
I
him. Yeah, I'm the same way. He'll go in, I think, a second though, because I think somebody's going to over project him just a little bit.
mhm. Okay, so now let's move on to the fourth round and try to figure out what our favorite scenarios would be. I've got a few. If we do not address corner, then this is the area I would start to look at Zion McCollum and
Hmm.
tell Pete, okay, there's your toy, go play.
Hmm. Yep, I've got him in my fourth round. Toolsy guy. Got he's got the size you look for at the position. Would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. This is where I had D'Angelo Malone. I know you mentioned him in the third, but I'm not getting the impression that he's going to be a third round pick yet. Maybe it will happen, but right now I'm hoping he's still available early day 3.
Mm-hmm. Very well could. Again, that small school stuff,
Mhm.
it's going to, teams don't have that competition to look at. He'd be great. That'd be great value
Yeah.
in the fourth.
Yeah. Another fourth rounder I'm into is Beef Jerky, Cameron Jurgens, center. He
Ooh.
became one of my favorite fourth round guys. If we don't get Linderbaum, he might be the next center I'm really targeting. I would be okay with Parham. I would be okay with Fortner, but Jurgens in the fourth round strikes me as the best value.
Would you take Jurgens in the third? Because that's where I think you're going to have to take him.
If you're up in the third, then I'm wondering if you can get Fortner, because in a vacuum, I do think that Fortner is better than Jurgens, but I would appreciate the added value. But you think Jurgens is going to be a day 2 pick?
I think what I've heard is it's another late riser on NFL boards in general, not one team looking at him. Those are the reports to me that gain a little more traction. Is I'm hearing a lot more behind this player. Not he's going to go here for sure, like when they say that crap, but I'm hearing more and more heat behind this given a player in past years' history. That usually means that guy's going to be pushed tiny bit higher than where you should necessarily think he should go. But I do think third round is the minimum of where Jurgens is going to land. I think there's a potential with him, Brendan, that he's the second center taken off the board.
That would be a very late riser, but it happens. It happens all the time. So maybe it happens to him. I would probably be okay taking him in the late third. I don't know about the 72 pick.
Yeah.
But there are a couple other centers in this draft I like, but Beef Jerky kind of became my favorite on a value level.
Yes.
Couple other guys in this range. What about Darian Beavers, the hybrid linebacker from Cincinnati?
He's one of the guys whose tape actually I just was not in love with watching.
Really?
I kind of came away, I think, really underwhelmed with him. Let me find my notes just to make sure I'm speaking. 4'7" guy. Doesn't will linebacker with an ability to rush the passer from the edge. Doesn't offer a lot as far as a pass rush outside of a hand swipe to dip move that works really well for him. He's a smart player, good tackler, decent zone drops. It's just he doesn't have a lot of urgency, and I saw really a striking lack of speed and not a very good athlete. And if you're not a very good athlete and you don't have very much speed, what is your fallback plan here? And so that's my worry with Darian is that I just don't think he's got the juice in his legs to get it done.
Okay. I value that. I agree with a lot of that. I was kind of drawn to him a little bit because of his versatility, but you're right about the slow speed. Okay. Are we going to mess around with Damone Clark, a linebacker who absolutely would have been I'd say, top 60 pick until he had the significant spine injury? If he's still available in the fourth round, is this where you go, the reward is worth the risk?
Yes, he's a bigger version of Darius Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
That's the quickest way I can put that with Damian Clark. So you're right about the whole. If this thing didn't happen, then he'd be in a place to do this. But he is just like we were talking about lack of athleticism with Beavers. This guy's on the other end of the scale of it. 4.57 40, 10.7 broad jump, 7.123 cone. Absolutely great. He's got safety closing speed for a linebacker. And he's damn near impossible to block at the point of attack. So they're one of the cleaner prospects in this draft, especially at the linebacker position. If you can get him in the fourth round, that would be probably the most of the scenarios we've talked about. That's as much of if he's clean from a health standpoint, that's as much value as you've gotten from any pick in this draft at that point.
Yeah. And he's going to redshirt his first year, but that's okay. We can deal with that. We can play Cody Barton for a year if we need to. It's fine. I also have running back Damian Pierce. If we haven't addressed running back yet, Florida?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He kind of grew on me. He was like a late guy that I looked at and was like, this is interesting.
A lot of varied opinion. He's a Stan's guy on that. Big on Mr. Pierce. If he had ran a little bit faster 40, I think we'll be talking about him in higher realms. Also, there's a little bit of question with him on the rotational role that he played. Why wasn't he just put as the bell cow? Why wasn't he just put as the starter? He fits the Seahawks mold of what they look for in their running backs, historically speaking, being a very tough runner, runs angry, doesn't die easy. is strong in that element as any running back in this class, but not a lot of speed. Ran a 4.57. He's a between the tackles type runner who's going to grind you out yards. But he's a guy especially if Carson isn't on this roster anymore, he's probably a guy that you need to get on this roster at this point. And I have a guy in addition to that who fits in the same mold, which would be Hassan Haskins, who I think also will be a 4th-round guy to Michigan, who I've called. I think he's a Chris Carson clone.
He's
Who could
so
also
slow though.
Chris
Like he ran a
Carson's slow.
I mean, didn't he run a 4.77 or something? It was like, I remember just thinking like you're literally slower than Jordan Davis at this point. I could be remembering wrong, but I remember looking at one of his 40 times and it was just like no breakaway speed whatsoever.
Let me see. Let me see here. I want to make sure because I thought he at least ran. And remember again too, it's 40. I can't type. It's the same thing I'd say with Carson. Carson's doesn't have a lot of speed either. And it's not as much a worry for me if you've got the tough running style and I know you're going to get it done between the tackles and the way that he does it. And he's just really, really won't be running the 40 dash duty. He had an ankle injury, so he didn't run the 40.
Okay.
So we don't know what he would have run. But I'd say he's like Carson was. He's probably a 4.6 guy in the 40. So it's not definitely no, he's not fast, but is he fast enough for what you need him to do for being the hammer, the guy that can wear down if you've got Penny as the big time, chunk yardage type back within the offense? Yeah, he can. And you're getting this is the 4th round we're talking too, which you're very cheap now for 3 years, that guy.
Yeah, if we're going to get a running back there, I think I like Pierre Strong or Zamir White better personally.
Pierre Strong, I have in that same place. I mean, I'm have him literally right next to these guys we're talking about as far as the rankings. So it's kind of your pick your poison for me with these guys. That I like them all kind of equally, and I like them. So it's if you end up with any of those guys, I mean, we're talking these guys: Brian Robinson, Jerome Ford. I would put all of these guys kind of in a similar basket as far as I'd be pretty equally happy if you walked away with any of these guys. Zamir, I have 1 round later than the spot that we're talking about. And again, a little bit of the rotational role on him, a little bit of they had to, he wasn't again the bell cow. Why aren't you giving him all these carries? Why is it all kind of being mixed? I know they have a lot of talent in that backfield. And I also know Georgia pushes out the good NFL running backs. Can't disqualify that. I maybe should have put Zamir a little higher than I did. I just wasn't as wowed, I think, by his tape on certain.
Yeah, he has 2 major injuries already in his ledger. I don't think there's any guarantee that he even gets drafted before round 6.
Yeah,
a lot of teams might remove him from their board because of the medical issue.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's a good point. I don't know if that's where my factor is by dropping him down that extra round, but I did on my board right now as I'm looking at it. I do have him down just one more below these guys we're talking about.
Yeah, my last 2 guys in the really nice 4th round tier would be Zach Tom, the Wake Forest offensive lineman. And I also this was another guy who was brought to my attention late in the process, linebacker Brandon Smith from Penn State. A lot of people in my comments are into that dude, and I ranked him about here. I think he'll probably go a little before I'm willing to take him, but I put him around here.
Yeah, might surprise you that I actually have Brandon Smith actually up in the 2nd round with a 2nd round grade. I do. Right. Yeah, he's Jeremiah Awuzie, basically the kid that was taken out of Notre Dame to Cleveland is this newfangled cover linebacker, rover type linebacker, spy linebacker on these fast quarterbacks. This new type of model of player that comes out. He's that to me. He does struggle to get off blocks. He's a finesse type linebacker, but I think that this is where the NFL is going. So this is a little bit of a pick about where the future of the sport's going from what you're going to need on defense versus what you needed from the defense in 1996. Good player though. Really, really exciting player. Jumps off the tape.
Right. And we've already talked a lot about Zach Tom, but that would be fun, right? A guy who can play all 5 positions.
Legitimate and legitimate, right? I know we've said, but not you. He can play them all because he's just gonna. No, he can play them. He can excel at those positions.
Not the Ethan Posick way, the real way.
Right, exactly. That's a great example. So you can really do that stuff. So it's just like you fill him in where you need him, or you let him develop from a standpoint of where you need him right now, and he could really take off. He's got a great physical makeup to his game.
Okay, so Now let's. I think that's a pretty good job of going over fourth round stuff.
I might
So
have
when you get
just two
go
more guys for you real quick. Two
go
more
for
guys
it.
in the fourth round. Devontae Price in the fourth round, and I go
Mhm.
up a little bit higher on this one. This is the one that the Seahawks met with, Michael Clemens.
Yeah, I have Michael Clemens listed. I don't get the impression that he's going to be in the third. He may. I view him as either a fourth rounder or fifth rounder. It just kind of depends on
Oh, I
how
thought
things
weren't
break
we in
down
the
there.
fourth? I thought we were in the fourth.
Yeah, we were doing the fourth, but yeah, I view him as being a end of the fourth or top of the fifth round guy. But he might be a late riser. He is a guy that I wasn't even looking at all until Rob Stanton suddenly kind of showed him off, and a lot of people were into him after Rob talked about him. So yeah, let's talk about Clemens a little bit because I also have him ranked pretty high on my either late fourth or early fifth board.
Well, I call him he's got the destroyer of worlds type body. 6'5",
Mm.
270, 34 and 7/8 inch arms going with 10-inch hands. So, the guy's one of those guys like stretched out,
Mhm.
incredible wingspan, which is what you want. And then he pairs that with a 1.6 10-yard split, which if you're looking for this is this year, Thibodeau this year, I think is what 1.56. Hutchinson's like a 1.55 10-yard split. So at 1.6 10-yard split, that's pretty fast for, again, a guy 270, 200,
Mhm.
legit 270. He carries all of it, and it's all just pure muscle in the guy. Put up 24 reps on the bench. In addition to that, run a 4.85 in addition to the nice 10-yard split. His patented move is he's got this Euro slow step to a hand swipe to a dip. So he sort of comes off, does the basketball Euro step where you move one way, come back to the other way, and then hand swipes and dips under. And he does that over and over again on tape. That's just kind of his patented move. But why I would draft a little bit higher than where you're putting him at, and you're right, due to his production and where you maybe would put him off of how much he's played college career-wise, you'd stick him maybe into that fifth round range. I go a little higher in the fourth round for this. Same reasons that
Mhm.
we'll talk about Devontae Price, because this physical traits this guy's bringing to bear, I can't find anywhere else, and he has shown it on the football field. So it becomes, again, back to that base thing of it's my job now to tap into what I've seen and what he's bringing naturally to the table.
Yeah, didn't the Seahawks meet with him?
They did.
Okay. I remember thinking there had to be some reason why so many Seahawks fans were circling the wagon around him. But yeah, he seems cool. A lot bigger than you would usually expect to find a guy like him late in the draft.
No, you usually this guy wouldn't last this long with that type 35-inch long arms. You win a 4.85 at 270 pounds, which is not, and that's not smoking smack. That's a lot of weight he's carrying than the guy that's the pass rusher at 255 running that. And if you look at the weight of where Thibodeau and Hutchinson were, I think what they were measured at the combine, like 215. I don't know. They were at least a good 10 pounds off of where he was probably measuring in at, I would say. So that's just unique.
And Devontae Price, he's not a guy I spent much time on, so
No,
you're going to have to.
nor would you. Small school guy. I
Mhm.
won't go too long on him. He's a lot to me like Clemens, though, where it's like the physical traits with this guy I can't find. Big and fast. My player comp for him is Antonio Gibson of the
Oh,
Washington.
okay.
So he's a lot
Okay.
like that. Same kind of build, same kind of upright running style. Really, a guy that's going to bust off big plays for you, though, with his explosion and speed that he bears now, like Florida AU or something. He played AIU, super small
Hmm.
program. So, but Gibson was the same way. Whereas I think it was Memphis, but it was a lot of like he barely got any snaps. I think he had like 60 carries or something in his career. So there's a lot of looking and projecting there. But I like it. We're talking about fourth round, getting guys with still this kind of upside. Normally not what you could be able to land on, Brendan. And that would be a common theme for me with looking in fourth round is let's get, if there's some upside guys remaining here where we're picking, let's gravitate towards that. Let's pick them.
Okay. All right. I think that all sounds pretty agreeable to me. So now let's take a look at the fifth round here. And when you get to this part of the draft, by the way, to be clear, you never know who's going to be there, right?
No.
Like a dude could break his fingernail the morning of the draft and suddenly he slipped 60 picks from round 4 to round 6.
Exactly.
Weird stuff happens. You never know who's going to be available. We went over this last week. Stone Forsythe was not supposed to be there in the 6th last year at all. Not even
No.
close.
No. Some people thought he'd be in the second.
Yeah. So that may happen. But as for guys that I'm looking at in the 5th round range, because we actually have 2 picks in the 5th this year, So we have a lot of flexibility in this range. Kyron Williams, the running back from Notre Dame, best pass blocker at running back in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
A Caleb Evans, a cornerback. I think he played at Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Has some Pete Carroll like measurables. Appy State linebacker DeMarco Jackson was somebody I actually put in one of my mocks when I hadn't addressed interior linebacker yet. We talked about him a little bit a few weeks ago, but he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Center Alec Lindstrom of Boston College, another one of those football runs in the blood guys.
Yeah.
And this is actually where I had Hassan Haskins, which I know is probably you're not going to get him here. But I was just really put off by that 40 time, but the 40 time I might have not been legitimate. So I might reconsider if I saw something that said, oh, he ran a 4.6. I could live with that. And then I was Jack Jones, cornerback from Arizona.
Jack. He's nice. He's fun to watch.
Yeah. This is also where I started opening myself up to taking a backup safety. I have like Dane Belton and Sterling Weatherford down here. I like both those guys.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my top priorities in this range. Maybe an edge like Dominique Robinson from Miami of Ohio. But anybody you're targeting in this 5th round range that you think might be there?
I think those guys you mentioned, Deontay Williams, another safety they met with, would also be right in there. Percy Butler in this range. I have Butler a little lower, but I think Seattle would look in the 5th round at Butler. They've also met with him. So those are 2 safeties to kind of keep an eye on. What about Cade Otton if he falls in here?
I just can't justify spending a pick on a tight end right now because unless we are done with Parkinson.
Yeah.
If we are done with Parkinson, then okay. But if not, then our 3 tight ends currently rostered are basically trapped here for the next 2 years because of their contracts.
Right.
And Parkinson is on his rookie deal for the next 2 years. So unless you're trying to replace Tyler Mabry on the practice squad, I can't bring myself to do it. And by the way, I think Cade Otton's going in the 4th. So
yeah, I think he probably will too, though. He is a kind of a tween guy between me on 4th and 5th with him. That just seems where those type of tight ends seem to tend to go, with their background. I think the guys you mentioned, though, aside from that, are pretty much right on. There's not as many guys that get me excited in this range. Like, we've talked about, the tier 3 of this draft just doesn't get me as much hot to trot as the tier 2 group does. But I think corner is where the value is. If you target corner here, this is where you could get a guy who's really talented, just got pushed down because of the glut of corners in this particular draft. And so if you're looking at positional value, that's where it probably lies in this particular round above any of the other ones.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be available here, but I think it's within the realm of possibility. I did have Cam Taylor-Britt in one of my mocks. He's a guy the Seahawks met with. He's a guy that I like. He's a guy who, if you got him in the 5th round, you would, I think, feel really good about.
Agreed. I as well have him in the same realm. I've got him and Kaylan Barnes at the top of my 5th round for cornerbacks. And then, Jack Jones, we just talked about a second ago, and so on and so forth below that. So those 2 guys, both 2 guys that met with Seahawks individually, and both of them have relatively good tape. Obviously, there's a reason they're in the 5th round and not in the 3rd or 2nd round. But they hit the markers that the Seahawks are going to tend to look for in the corner position from a physical profile, defenses they played in, and their acumen for the position. So those would be, to me, solid picks. I was looking to see if there's maybe just one more guy here. And again, I did like the Kyron Williams selection you mentioned. He's good tape. I've got him at the top in the 5th round for my running backs. Maybe Samari Toure. We talked about him a couple weeks ago, the kid out of Nebraska, their slot receiver. Yeah. They may take a peek at him as well in that spot. That'd be about right where he'd go. Or another guy in that 5th round who's a hard guy to figure out in this draft, Ontario Drummond, the kid that Matt Corral was throwing to at Ole Miss. He's got basically Debo Jones. He's Debo. He is the. I know this is the whole thing nobody wants to do in these drafts now. Is go, this guy's Debo Samuel. Why am I can't remember his last name right now? He's like Debo, but he's got 4.7 speed. So you're just slow Debo style is what you're getting, but really good player nonetheless. And he was really productive with Corral there, run the routes they were, which is a lot of that short yak West Coast offense stuff. And he ran it well, which is less reliant on the guy having to get deep necessarily, or having the deep speed, I guess I should say.
Yeah. For whatever it's worth, this is also the area of the draft I would consider drafting Isaiah Spiller. So I don't think that's going to come into play though, because somebody's going to value him the way all the big boards were.
He is my one guy that he's on my corral penning list, man. He is on my hated children list. You know what I mean? I am so out on Spiller as far as a player goes. He's got good stuff that he does to his game, but for a finesse back, if you're going to be like that, you got to be bringing in the 4.4 speed. If you can't run hard between the tackles, you got to do that, because if you're a finesse back at 4.65, 4.7, you don't run hard enough or strong enough to be able to break the tackles then to be productive. And you're not fast enough to get to the edge and run away from guys. And I just think that that's going to be something that upends him in his pro career.
Yeah, but 6th round pick, then I can
I know. Yeah, I'm not going to hate him. I'm not going to hate him in the 6th. I'm not going to hate him. I wouldn't hate it even in, honestly, the 5th. Like when you get to this, like we talked about, you're into this territory. It's hard to get mad at the player picked at this spot.
Right. Okay. When you get into the 7th round, it really is just like, who the heck knows. But I'll give you a name. I'll give you some names of guys who I really like in this range. Matt Henningsen, defensive end, a good fit for a 3-4. That was one of the things that stuck out to me when I was scouting him. He's a guy who should be able to do the things that you need to do when you're a defensive lineman in a 3-4. That was something that drew me to him. I think he will be available in like the 6th or 7th round. Wisconsin. He's great against the run, and he's also great at shooting gaps into the backfield. So that would be my guy in that area.
I like your pick there. I actually got way high on Henningsen. I think it was when we were initially you're having me look at the tape on him. We were talking about we were going to discuss him. He's actually a guy that I feel like has got a lot of upside to where you'd be picking him here. So I even went up in the highs to stick a 5th round, like a late 5th round grade on him. So getting him in the 6th, 7th round would be tremendous potential. He's got great first step quickness, and he can operate out of the one tech, which is two things that can just help you out tremendously. Well, that's the thing that helps you out in one tech. First step quickness to get in between those double teams and really press the double teams really fast off the snap. Good size, good length, just good player, really good, solid player.
Yeah. Isaiah Poamau, the cousin apparently of Troy Polamalu or something.
I've heard that
USC,
too,
yeah, USC safety. Interesting option to be a backup going forward. I think he could be available in like the 6th or 7th round.
Agreed with him. He doesn't do a lot for me as far. He was just a guy to me watching him on tape. Just he was there, but there wasn't a lot you were getting from him and watching him.
Max Borghi, the WSU running back. I think he'll be available here. He's Rob Stanton loves him. He thinks he should be a 3rd round pick. Like no joke, which I don't agree with that. But if he's going to be available in the 7th, which is what I expect him to be, then I like that, especially if you're not addressing running back before then.
I think Max goes late 5th to 6th myself, but if he's there in the 7th, I would take him. Good 3rd down back. He's a poor man's Christian McCaffrey. He's a slower Christian McCaffrey basically. So maybe about an inch smaller than Christian too. So, but you're talking, that probably goes in the 6th because it's just a little bit. He's got a unique skill set versus some of the other guys in that range, like Jalen Warren, Tyler Goodson, CJ Verdell, Kennedy Brooks. His unusualness may allow him to be drafted a little bit higher.
Cole Kelly, the quarterback, the 280-pound quarterback.
The Gerald Lorenzen 2.0.
Yeah. By the way, I do expect him to get drafted. Most of the stuff I looked at did say he's going to be like a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick. So I do think you might have to draft him, and I'm cool with that. Let's have some fun this year. If we're going to be bad, let's be bad. Yeah. Drew Lock's not going to play every game, and I'm not saying he's better than Geno Smith, but he would be more fun to watch.
And you never know until you get him in the building. And for a 6th, 7th round flyer, that's worth the risk sometimes on that.
Yeah, those would be a majority of my 7th round guys. Do you have anybody else you're prioritizing in this range, as hard as it is to do that?
I'll give you a couple guys. One guy being two guys the Seahawks met with, Armani Rogers, a guy you could be getting in that mold of the tight end, the guy that played basketball his whole life and then converted to tight end.
Was he the guy from Ohio, not Ohio State, but Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're thinking maybe we land on the guy that's going to be Antonio Gates, or that's going to be the guy that's playing for Denver, Julius Thomas, when he had a good couple of years there for Denver, a former basketball convert. really, you're getting a guy with upside in the 6th, 7th round. That's not bad. It's a lot of, nothing guaranteed here. The other guy was Derek Young that the Seahawks met with. He's got some Cordero Patterson vibes to him. Real thickly built guy that is really good with yak and in the open field with the ball in his hands. Again, Seattle met with. He'd be an interesting guy from my standpoint. Maybe if we've waited this long to finally deal with the center position, Donovan West out of ASU. If he lasts that long, I'm really not as high on him. That's why I've got him in the 7th round. You don't like him?
No, I don't dislike him. I just think he'll be gone by then, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that a different team that maybe utilizes a different scheme will value him more than we will. The center to me down here would actually be Luke Wattenberg from UW. I think he'll be here in the 7th round, and I wouldn't mind taking him.
And see, I think I just hated the tape on West. This is maybe just some of my personal evaluation on this where I just didn't like him because I've got Wattenberg at much higher. I think I've even got Wattenberg in like the 5th round. So I just hated West's tape.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the hard part of doing these big boards. We understand that players have objective value, but we also have our subjective tastes. Like, honestly, I think that Carson Strong is going to be a better pro than Travon Walker. But in no universe would I ever pick Carson Strong over Travon Walker in the 1st round because I understand the objective value there. So, I understand you can get Carson Strong in the 3rd round. You might even be able to get him in the 4th. Travon Walker, even if you draft him and you don't really like him, he's going to be good enough to do something for you. And at worst, you can probably trade him to another team for a 1st round pick because there are going to be some teams that really value him. Like it sounds like Jacksonville might actually think he's the best player in the draft.
For sure. He's the favorite right now by Vegas to be selected if you're laying down money, and Vegas doesn't put those odds to lose.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, again, I like Carson Strong more than any quarterback in this draft, but I definitely wouldn't take him over Ritter, even though I think he'll be a better pro. Ritter is clearly more valued. So you kind of have to balance that. Sometimes it's hard.
It is. No, this is not a finite science. Even for the pros that do this, they miss, they get it wrong, they wildly swing and go wrong. So this is the part of the fun of doing this is trying to see how right you can get with it and how close you can get to it. Your assessment, like you said, subjective. Everyone's going to have a little bit of their different feel and read for, what they like or don't like with it.
And that's all 7 rounds. They only do 7 rounds now. I guess in the old days, didn't they do like 30 rounds or something?
Oh, it was like it was I think it's legit 15. It was 12 to 15 rounds. So it was at least 12 to 15. I think 15, I want to say. Can you imagine, Brendan, having to get you're talking, oh my God, dude. We'd be having to get down to like 500 prospects every draft. We need to look at it. And people be asking us about, hey, what about this 13th rounder? He kind of looks like a player to me, man. He's kind of got some length to him.
Yeah. At the very least, he'll be the star of his softball team when he goes to work as a milkman.
Exactly. Oh my God, the live stream days on those, that'd be insane. And 20-hour live streams.
Yeah. So let me ask you something, Brandon. Do you have at this point like a dream mock, like your ideal scenario mock? Have you come up with your number one?
Yeah, I mean, as far as for player or for situation?
In terms of the players.
In terms of the players' dream scenario, boy, walking away with Devin Lloyd and Linderbaum stands out to me. As far as if I come away with I don't know how it happens, Saints, Eagles, whatever way you do to make it happen, coming away with that type of situation on a team that desperately needs upper level talent at positions and a multitude of it at that. Coming away at that feels really good to me as far as from a safety standpoint of it. I don't know about this. I've heard with Devin Lloyd, there's some worries about his medicals, so I don't know about his knee and all that stuff. But if the medicals are clean, getting both of those two guys to me would be a kind of a dream scenario by just getting the one guy. We're not one player away. There's guys I like individually more in their potential. I think Stingley's going to have more potential than those two guys. Jermaine Johnson might end up with more potential than those two guys, but they're safe and they have potential, which I can't say that about even in the guys in the 1st round, a lot of those guys. How about you?
Yeah, that's my dream 1st round. Trade number 9 and one of your 2nd rounders for 2 mid 1st rounders. Get Linderbaum, get Lloyd, and I don't even think Pete Carroll could mess that up. Carroll could mess up some other guys in this draft. Carroll messes up players all the time. I still believe Posick would have been good if Carroll did not play him at guard for 3 years. I still do.
I absolutely think it hurt him. Whether he would have been good or not, it did hinder him and hurt him to play him out of position for his first couple of years. In retrospect, we can at the very least say that. And if we can say that, then it should be more of a rule going forward that we don't do that as much. Let's not go the direction of things that have been causes for mistake and pain and problems with our developing of players, especially when we've not developed players even beyond Posick or the center position particularly well in the last 4 to 5 years.
Right. So that's my dream first round. And given that first round, my dream second round would be Mafe. I know you said you preferred Abraham Lucas.
Lucas is my guy right now. That's the guy in the second round. I've for a while now have been just circling and circling and circling and circling. So I'm not going to move off of it at this point.
Okay.
Him and Travis Jones. We'll go. Give me a second one other than Mafe.
Other than Mafe for me, well, if it's not Mafe, then I would probably go Ebiketie because to me they're both on the same plane. Okay, so given that in the third, I have Petit Frere to be your left tackle of the future. Okay. So if you get Lucas in the second round, who are you getting in the third at that point?
My third round guy at that point is going to be a really good question. I want to give you a good answer here. If I can get Bonito at that point, because I haven't gone in my scenario here, I haven't necessarily attacked edge rush yet. So I've got to start attacking edge rush by this point. So Bonito would be a guy, or Channing Tindall would be maybe a guy in that I might even look at as just another outside the box. No, I'm not Channing Tindall. Yeah, but I've drafted Devin Lloyd, so maybe we got to take Tindall off the potential there as an option.
What about Sam Williams at that point?
Yeah, I'd probably go Sam. I was just thinking back. It's got to be edge rusher for me at that point in my scenario with the third round pick. So Sam Williams, Nick Bonito, D'Angelo Malone, even if I got to go that route with it, and even Ajabo if something got weird with his drop.
Yeah, my fourth round dream was, I'm kind of wishing on a star here, but I went with Carson Strong. I don't know if he's going to be there, but very early in the fourth, his knee is still messed up. Like, it's possible. Everybody could chicken out.
They could. I mean, you never know. And knees are a thing that get a lot of opinion. If they made the medical evaluation, the thing's holding on by a wing and a prayer, that's going to dissuade from people from the top 3 rounds, which is the first 2 days of the draft. And there's just more of an onus on those first 2 days for the teams to get it right and not be taking guys that are, have that kind of risk or carry that kind of risk with them. So yeah, it makes sense to me with that would be where they go. We're in the fourth round, right?
Yeah, and you've gone center, linebacker, right tackle, edge.
So fourth round, how about Rashid Walker? I went right tackle, I go left tackle now.
If he's there in the fourth, I can do that. Like, he'll be maybe he'll work himself out of this stuff. Like, everybody gets more mature as they get older, right?
I hope so.
Unless you're Ron Artest. I don't know.
I hope so. He'll at least be entertaining. And if we're going to go through rebuild, we might as well at least be entertaining if we're not going to be competitive.
Okay. But yeah, I can dig that. Fifth round, I went with Michael Clemens and Cam Taylor-Britt. I don't know if either guy's going to be there. They might both be fourth rounders, but whatever. We're dreaming, right? We can dream.
No, dream should be about getting the guy that falls out of your fourth round to your fifth round. So it should be your guy that, essentially that you are getting there. And God, I don't have a good one here. That's a dream. It's hard to start getting into dream territory.
Yeah, I know.
It's like dream, dream. I don't know. Let me go defense here because offense ain't looking good on my big board at the moment. Oh my God. I don't like any of these guys. All right. A dream would be in the fourth. Let's say Zachary Carter falls. That would be it.
Okay, there we go.
There's a possibility, I think, there that he goes. So he'd be a guy that I would look at.
Yeah. And then in my seventh round, and who the hell knows, right? But I had Matt Henningsen. He's my favorite guy who I think may be there in the seventh.
Yeah. Like I said, I got a high grade on him. So I liked him quite a bit. Seventh round drop for me. I got my guy, I think. Here, hold on. I want to make sure I'm right on this one. I know it's the last one. It's an important one here, man. Let's go with I got my guy here. So let's go with either Zamir White, just in case there's some worry about that knee going on. And if not Zamir, then Jack Jones, if we're talking sixth or seventh round.
Okay. All right. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but I thought
No,
we'd
no,
just
I like it. It
throw it
gets me
out there.
thinking about what I'd like to see with this. So that's,
Hmm.
that's your hope, is you're getting each guy around a little bit deeper than where you had him slotted. That's the ideal.
Right. But as for like a prediction of what happens, I'll just do the first round. I think, to me, it's either going to be Stingley or Jordan Davis. To me, I think it's going to be one of those two things, and I think we're going to trade back a little bit and try to get Jordan Davis. And if he's gone, then I'm thinking at that 15 to 19 range, I'm going to predict Devin Lloyd. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and I'll try to go a little different with you on this, even though I agree with you on the trade back. I think they do trade back. I think it is that they don't get the second round, but they do the third round, getting back into the mid-teens area of things. So let me give you a guy that's I'll go Jermaine Johnson, being the guy that they end up with going back into that teen spot. So Lloyd makes a lot of sense to me. You sort of took my thunder with that one, because that would have been my, but I don't want us to be
Yeah.
completely agreeing on everything. So I'll go with the Jermaine Johnson as would be my, if you could land on him at that point.
Well, if we do take Devin Lloyd, let the record show that we both saw it coming. So,
That's right.
I
We
mean,
called it. We called our
yeah,
shot.
yeah. Regardless, we both called it. Okay. I think that's about all we got. Anything else you want to talk about as it regards this draft?
Nope. Let's just remain hopeful out there. I'm sure you're seeing it somewhat in your chat. I hope everyone out there there's been a lot of dissuading this offseason in certain respects from our front office and some of their moves, letting go of Hall of Famers, some of them without even giving them a call, some of the way they've spent their money. There hasn't always been a lot of room for optimism, but I would caution people as they approach this draft, Brendan, to look at the cup with a little bit more water in it than maybe we have been through this offseason to a degree, because there is a lot of room here for optimism. They're picking 3 times in the top 55 picks, something like that.
41.
41.
Top 41.
It's going to
Yeah.
be hard for them to mess these picks up. There are players, even in Penning's case, that we're not going to be super hyped by, but to completely mess them up, to LJ Collier it, to Malik McDowell it would be very hard for them to do. Not out of the realm of contention, but it should provide some optimism for you and encourage you for this future upcoming draft. And that I don't think we're landing in that stage at all, even close to it.
One more question for you before we stop the show. I just it's been something that's been discussed a little bit in my Discord. Would you be willing to trade up 1 or 2 spots, probably 2 spots, if that's what it took to get Thibodeau?
No.
Okay.
If I'm trading up,
Because
then the guy can't have questions, right? Like
okay.
if I'm, because again, the reason sorry, what were you going to say?
No, because in the Discord we were saying like a lot of people think Atlanta's going to get Thibodeau.
Right. I mean, if not them, he could go top 5 even. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a wide variance. So him and Stingley both are in that same category where they could go anywhere from top 3 all the way into like top 12 state of things. And I love Thibodeau's game. I'd love Thibodeau at number 9. But if you're trading up from 9 to 5, it's for Hutchinson. It's because Hutchinson's dropped, or it's because you have the Neal as your number 1 tackle on the board and you're moving up to get him. And you've not that you and I have him there, but that they as a team have that guy there and he's fallen to that spot because of the situation. You don't do it for a guy that has questions about his motor and maybe he doesn't have enough bend to get around the corner for some people. Like it's for that type of guy with those questions, whether they're valid or kind of not valid, we'll see. I can't make that move for it. The cost is great to move up from 9 to 5. It's going to cost you one of your second round picks, if not more.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree, but I just wanted to run that one past you real quick because some people are starting to think we're going to get teased with the Thibodeau thing and he's going to go right before us. And I was like, would we be willing to trade up to make that happen? But I think the answer is no. I think I agree.
And again, too, with Snyder being so, he's so militant about this, Brendan. He does not trade up in the first round, and 10 and 11 years of data of this to go off of. When a guy doesn't do that, and then he's on the other side of it, also on the other side of that scale of damn near obsessed with trading back. That type of mentality in that guy, to me, I don't push him forward going, he's open to even trading up. I think he looks at that as the way he values draft is I want more swings, and there's no way I really want less swings unless like Carroll's forcing me to do a Jamal Adams trade. I think he sits in that kind of state of mind.
Okay. All right. So the plan is, by the way, to everybody in chat, we got over 200 people in here right now. Thank you everybody for showing up. tomorrow night after day one, probably sometime around 9 o'clock, maybe a little later. It depends on how long the draft takes. But would you be up to doing a sort of post day one stream for maybe just half an hour on your channel where we talk about whatever we did?
So I'm down to do it, but I'm going to probably go late on these. So I'm going to have to, like, if my chat's filling up and it's popping, it's going to be hard to be like, all right, let me shut off, guys. We go over it, So I'm down if everything's kind of settled down. People are like, okay, let's prep for tomorrow and get ready. But just if we can play it by ear on that to see where we're kind of at, because
Yeah. So I'm totally down for that. I'm totally down to do it later too as well. I mean, I know you've streamed past midnight before. I am down for that.
No, if you're okay with just doing maybe just a little later, because I think what's going to happen is tomorrow we're going to have as many people as we've had in our chats going. We're going live because people are going to be so tuned into this tomorrow, and it's going to cause things to get really pushed up. I'm guessing on that day one.
Yeah, we can do B&B after dark. Absolutely.
It's B&B after dark. It gets dangerous, folks. It gets dangerous after dark.
Yeah, and also maybe after day two we could do something similar. That would be on my channel.
We can definitely try on that. Remember, with that one, it goes late on that day, and then you got to be up at 8:30 in the morning the next day on day three for day three. So we gotta. But I'm down. If just remember with that, that's gonna be we're gonna be grinding on that one. So
yeah. And then at day three, I think we'll save the day three stuff for a future show on probably Thursday again. But yeah,
we can do that or Sunday, one of the two, Sunday or next Thursday. Either way you want to go on that one.
Okay, we'll see what people seem to like.
Okay, works for me.
But yeah, so yeah, everybody go check out the Hawk's Nest. Just search the Hawk's Nest; it'll come up in the YouTube search. He's getting up close to how many subs now?
We're just rounding 6,900, I think. So I'm just going to push past, I think, 7 here. Hopefully this next week with the draft.
Right. So he's going to be covering the whole draft. I think he's going to be streaming pretty much the whole time. We're going to, just like I am. So we're both going to be covering it from different perspectives. Both going to have our different takes on whatever ends up happening. So definitely go check him out. This is a great time of year to check him out because this is when he's working the hardest for sure. It's same with me.
Man. Hell yeah. You're grinding right along with me, man. So
yeah. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming out. We went for a little over 2 hours. I will see you guys tomorrow. Brandon, I hope to see you tomorrow as well. But here's hoping for a good day because it's maybe the most important day of the post Russell Wilson era that we will have for quite some time.
This is it. Great point on that. This is your match point. This is your strike point for this franchise going forward here. Not the money they spent this offseason, which obviously didn't commit a lot to the future. These picks, there's no way around it. You're committing to the future here and what you're going to accomplish in that future. So it is either they're going to begin to start to turn this thing back to front in the right way and get them back on the rise, or they're going to swing and miss. But it's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for coming out. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.